Good afternoon. It is 1 o'clock. Thanks for joining us here at Fox 5 News Live, streaming now on Fox Local and TikTok. We have a lot of headlines to get to this morning. We're also streaming on YouTube, but a lot of national headlines, including the war between the U.S. and Israel and Iran, and then also some local headlines as well. We're going to go ahead and bring in Tanya Mendoza. She is working hard over there, our assignment desk manager. Tanya, what's happening locally?
That's right. We do have a lot of stories working this morning. I want to start off with the story that Tyler Fingert is on right now in DeKalb County. So at around 2:48 a.m., police say they responded to the Park at Somerset apartment complex. That's around the 600 block of Aberley Way. A 9-year-old child was shot there and rushed to the hospital. Since we were on for during Good Day, we had an update from DeKalb County Police that said preliminary reports indicate the victim's 21-year-old brother, his name is Christopher Fields, accidentally discharged his weapon while trying to put it away. The bullet traveled through the wall into the next room, and sadly, the younger brother was shot and transported to the hospital. So we are going to have an update on that story. Tyler Fingert's working it. He's out in the neighborhood, and he'll have an update later. Jasmine?
Yes, so I know this story we've been covering all morning here. Very sad story, a child shot in the DeKalb County apartment. And we've been seeing a lot of these instances here where children have been injured in shootings or even killed in shootings. And so, have authorities said anything about protecting kids from gunfire?
Well, so DeKalb Police is highlighting their free gun safe program available at all 4 precincts to help prevent similar home accidents. So that is something that they are putting out there right now. And recently, we've had a lot of accidental shootings involving children and their parents' weapons. So it's just a reminder to everyone to keep the guns locked and away from children in general. Most of the police departments have been saying that.
And Tanya, too, another story that we're following, a shooting, a child was shot and killed, I believe last week that was. Can you talk about that? Because a vigil's being held for a 7-year-old child today.
Yes, that's right. So we've been covering this story since last week. Angelique Proctor's on it again today. Basically, last week on Tiger Flowers Drive, there was a shooting. I think it was at night on Tuesday, I believe, and 2 people were shot, a mother and daughter. Sadly, the daughter, Zoey Price, 7 years old, passed away as a result of that shooting. We have been in touch with the family. Angelique Proctor's been in touch with the family. They've announced a candlelight vigil in the community tonight. It starts at 5 o'clock at 477 Windsor Street in Atlanta. We'll have a crew there. We'll be live from the vigil, and hoping to hear from family members. We're hoping to get an update on the mother's condition, and we'll be there later today. I do want to mention there was a GoFundMe set up to assist with funeral costs and I believe living expenses for the family.
Thank you so much. And we only have time, Tanya, for one more. So talk about what Warnock is doing in Social Circle today.
Okay, so Senator Warnock's in Social Circle meeting with city leaders there. They are visiting, he's visiting Social Circle, and this is all about the ICE facility, the ICE detention facility that is being proposed for that area. So Mayor David Keener and City Manager Eric Taylor are joining him. They're saying that basically they feel blindsided by the federal decision and claim the city lacks the infrastructure to support such a facility. Senator Warnock says he's working to block the purchase of warehouses in Social Circle and Oakwood, calling the plan an overreach. So we're going to have his he's having a press conference. He's touring the area, and we're going to have his thoughts on that later today. Our reporter, Rob D'Arienzo, is out there right now, and he'll have the latest later. I do want to mention real quick that Later today, I'm going to squeeze in one more story. Annie Mapp is going to Atlanta Police Department's press conference. They've announced it's about gangs, guns, and drugs, an operation that they worked on and they have the results of. I'm told federal officials are going to be joining them at the press conference, so tune in later for that. And we'll have an update at around 3:15 on that story.
Tanya, thank you so much for giving us an update on what the reporters here are working on, what Fox 5 News is working on today. And thank you for following these stories for us. We do have to get going and get to the Middle East conflict there. So the nation mourns the three American soldiers and killed in this and 5 injured so far by the Iranian retaliatory attacks across the Middle East. This comes in the wake of the U.S.-Israeli strikes in Iran, resulting in the death of the country's supreme leader here. And we have heard from the president today on this and the Secretary of State. Fox News correspondent Rebecca Castor, she's been following the story. And Rebecca, what is the latest here on this conflict?
Jasmine, well, a sad update this morning. The death toll of U.S. service members overseas is now at 4. This is a change from the 3 that we reported yesterday. A 4th soldier succumbed to their injuries that they were wounded from during the initial strikes on Iran. So a sad update there this morning. Things are really developing quickly overseas. Something else shocking that happened this morning was we saw video of fighter jets, U.S. fighter jets being struck down over Kuwait. And we learned from U.S. Central Command that this was a friendly fire incident. The Kuwaiti air defenses, they mistakenly shot down the 3 U.S. fighter jets. But the good news there is that the 6 air crew on board, all of them ejected safely. They have been recovered and they're in stable condition. But this just goes to show how on edge countries are across the Middle East right now. The fog of war is real, and we're going to see some countries start making mistakes.
We know that officials are speaking out across the world here. Iranian officials, they're saying that they're, going to pay. There's payback, for this. And so have you heard anything from Iranian officials?
Yes. So those that are taking charge, they are publicly saying that they are not going to enter negotiations with the United States. They are going to seek revenge for the death of the country's supreme leader and those 40 plus senior commanders. Now, this is slightly different from what we've heard from President Trump, and it's hard to tell whether those Iranian leaders are just saying that for propaganda purposes or if they are saying something different behind closed doors. But President Trump has said that people that are taking over in Iran are calling him by the hundreds, he put it, calling him to surrender. This is what President Trump wants the people of Iran to do, those that are still in leadership positions. There's a lot of questions about what the new leadership in Iran is going to look like, but President Trump has told the Revolutionary Guard and the military police there they will get full immunity if they surrender. And if not, he said, quote, they will face certain death. So that is how President Trump has laid it out to the Iranians.
Rebecca, thank you so much. And we actually do have a sound from Trump that, we're going to play here. I know you have to get going, though. Anything else that we can expect here over the next couple of days from lawmakers here in the U.S.?
Yes, so lawmakers are returning to Washington today and tomorrow. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is going to be here on the Hill later today. He's going to brief the top Republicans and Democrats in Congress on the Iran mission. All members of Congress will get that same classified briefing tomorrow. So we are going to start hearing a lot of debate here over the next several days on what is called a War Powers Resolution. Democrats want to invoke the War Powers Act, wanting to rein in President Trump and, limit this operation that's ongoing. They are not happy that President Trump did not seek congressional approval before authorizing this attack.
Rebecca, thank you so much for covering this story for us and bringing us updates. We look forward to checking back in with you later. That's Rebecca Castor reporting there on the conflict, the U.S.-Israeli and Iranian conflict. And I do want to play that sound that I just referred to from President Donald Trump.
We're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America.
Again, that's President Trump speaking on the war there. Trump saying Iran operations are likely to last 4 to 5 weeks, but he's prepared to go far longer. So he is preparing to keep this ongoing. Again, this all came after the killing of the supreme leader, the Iranian supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. That was on Saturday. So we will continue to follow this story. We know it impacts Americans and just many across the world. We've seen protests come out of this. And chaos, especially especially overseas. So we'll continue to follow this story here. Let's go ahead and move on to a trial that we've been following for a few weeks now. This is the trial for the trial for Colin Gray, who's the father of Colt Gray. Colin Gray facing 29 felony charges tied to the Apalachee High School shooting in Winder, Georgia. This happened on September 2024. He is the father of Colt Gray, who is the accused Apalachee High School shooter. Now, closing arguments are underway in this trial. Jurors have heard collecting testimony from family members and Gray himself about the warning signs, firearm access, and efforts to address Colt Gray's behavior. So after a 90-minute closing arguments from each side and the final jury instructions, deliberations will begin and any verdict must be unanimous here. Again, Colin Gray, he is from Barrow County, the father of Colt Gray, the accused Apalachee High School shooter. Colin Gray is accused of enabling the weapon access that prosecutors say led to that deadly shooting at Apalachee High School, killing 4 people, 2 students and 2 teachers. Gray, again, we know is facing 29 felony charges, including second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, and cruelty to children. Authorities allege his teenage son, Colt Gray, carried out that shooting at Apalachee High School. And this is a live picture right here of the trial. Again, going on and has been going on for a few weeks now. This case has been watched nationwide because it seeks to hold a parent responsible, criminally responsible in connection with a mass shooting, a school shooting committed by a child. And, you know, just to give you a little bit more information here, we don't typically see this happen. But in Michigan, the only other parents that are there, they were the only to face trial under similar circumstances, and they were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to prison for their child's criminal activity. So, you know, over nearly 2 weeks of testimony in Barrow County here for Colin Gray trial, and jurors have heard conflicting accounts about what warning signs existed and how serious they were treated. The panel brought in from Hall County, that is, to avoid local influence, listened to emotional testimony throughout this trial from Colt Gray's mother, his sister. The mother, Marcy Gray, told jurors she urged her estranged husband to remove firearms from their son's access as the teen struggled with anger and violent ideation. The sister testified that her father was aware of her brother's fascination with past school shooters, but allowed a rifle to remain in his bedroom. And, you know, we have shown a video of the trial and heard these testimonies, especially from the sister and from authorities who responded to that scene and actually showed the shrine that he had of the Parkland school shooter. So this has been a very important information in this trial. Now, during cross-examination, Barrow County District Attorney Brad Smith confronted Colin Gray with school discipline records, prior threats reported to law enforcement, and the father's own online searches seeking help for a troubled teen. So his father reportedly was searching for things like this, seeking help for a troubled teen. Smith pressed him about whether a child described as volatile and anxious should have access to a semi-automatic rifle. Prosecutors also presented some surveillance footage from inside the school which, we did not show that on here, but they did present that. They also presented financial records documenting the rifle purchase and evidence they described as a paper trail of ammunition and tactical accessories. Some of those items were recovered after the shooting. Now, before the closing arguments began, Judge Nicholas Prem, he did hold a charge conference this morning outside the presence of the jury. And during that proceeding, attorneys debated on how the law should be explained to jurors for each of the 29 counts here. But again, Gray faces a potential sentence that could amount to decades in prison. We actually think, we had one of our reporters on this story earlier, and he will most likely spend the rest of his life in prison if he is convicted, if he is found guilty of these 29 counts. Again, this is the Colin Gray trial here. They associated with the Apalachee High School school shooting in Winder, Georgia. Your time is 1:16. We will continue to bring you some headlines, but first, we're going to talk about an important topic: social media alerting self-harm searches to parents. This is new, and we're going to hear from a cybersecurity expert on the importance of this. Welcome back. Meta is introducing a new safety feature on Instagram. It will alert parents if their teen repeatedly searches terms associated with self-harm and suicide. This marks the first time the company will be proactively notifying parents. And we have a cybersecurity expert here today to explain this. This is Andy Thompson. He's a cybersecurity researcher there. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So first, this sounds like a good initiative here. How are the algorithms going to identify these self-harm related searches?
So here's the thing. It has nothing to do with the algorithms. This is not as proactive as they're making this out to be. This is only alerting parents who have opted in along with their children when certain keywords are triggered. The algorithm itself has no bearing on that. So I feel like in some ways they're approaching this in not necessarily the direction I would have.
Okay, so you say that they're approaching us in a direction that you don't necessarily agree with. What do you feel is best in this situation?
Well, like you said, it's about the algorithm itself, making sure that we're not feeding our teens these toxic messages of self-harm and what could lead them to wanting to type those things in the first place.
Got it. Thanks for answering that question. What are some of the risks here of false positives or false negatives in this in the way that they are alerting parents?
Well, I think you're not gonna. I think we'll see a lot of false negatives because of the fact that I feel like this is going to be a little too late. I feel that teens that are willing to go down the route of the self-harm angle will knowingly not go and search up tools that they've opted into being observed. And so I feel whether they'll create alternative accounts or not use those channels, I don't feel like this will accomplish much from preventing self-harm, frankly.
Got it. Thank you for answering that question, Andy. What are some of the cybersecurity concerns here that come to mind when a platform like Meta has an initiative like this?
Well, so I feel like this comes in a timely time in that there are litigations being done on Meta for their apps being addictive or causing harm. And so I feel like the releasing of these sorts of new tools and new features is more to address this in the courtroom than really truly affecting their end users.
And my next question for you, where is the line here between safety intervention and surveillance?
That is a truly difficult question to answer that really relied, in my opinion, it's on the parent. It's truly our job as caretakers to be monitoring our children's well-being and what they're doing online. And frankly, by enabling these platforms to do it for us, I think is taking the easy way out. We need to take responsibility of what our kids are being exposed to, and prevent it that way instead of relying on Meta to do the babysitting for us.
And so how does this fit to you? How does this fit into a broader platform accountability efforts, across social media?
I mean, geez, it's a hard thing when you can't keep your kids off of all the different devices and platforms and whatnot. But I do believe that it's our job as parents to restrict screen time on all their devices. So PCs, games, mobile devices. I think that's really what's going to keep our kids from harming themselves by exposure to these toxic algorithms. It's by preventing the access to those algorithms in that manner.
And how do you think these social media companies will safeguard people's information and protect it from data breaches?
Oh, they'll only do as minimal job as they legally have to when it comes to protecting the data. Whatever the compliance mandates are that's about the low water mark. But that's to be expected. Frankly, social networks, big tech companies have not done the best job at protecting our personal data. So just take that with a grain of salt. Know that what you're providing out there online is for public consumption. So, yeah.
And can we expect other social media platforms to follow suit here?
I think they would only follow suit if they are in similar litigation. But I mean, from a public relations perspective, it makes them look good by doing these sorts of initiatives. So whether it be prodded by litigation or public relations, yeah, I expect you'll see more adoption of this in the future.
Got it. And, those are all my questions for you today. You mentioned parents a lot in this interview. What else can parents do to protect their kids? Because you say that, parents do need to take that step when it comes to protecting their kids online.
Well, I think just again, having observability into what your kids are doing, what they're being exposed to, but then also standard cybersecurity best practices, password managers, folks, multi-factor authentication. These sorts of things aren't just for corporations. So at-home users can use password managers, including kids. And so I recommend that, highly, highly recommend it.
Andy, thank you so much for answering this question. Should parents at all be worried here with this new alert system?
Should parents be worried about this new alert system? I don't necessarily know if they'll need to necessarily be worried about it. In the event that they get an alert, which again I feel is highly unlikely, but should they get an alert, absolutely take it dead serious, because that's exactly what we're dealing with. Take it incredibly seriously if they do get an alert. Again, I just don't think it's very likely.
Okay, Andy, thank you so much for joining us and talking about this new initiative here, Meta alerting parents if teens search self-harm there. Andy, thank you for joining us. We're going to move forward here. That was Andy Thompson, a cybersecurity researcher there, talking about this new initiative from Meta, and just saying that, parents should take the initiative to protect their kids, and it shouldn't be placed on social media platforms to do that. But next, we're going to talk about something different here for many in Atlanta, especially those in the running community. Jeff Galloway, I'm pretty sure you know that name. His sudden death from cerebral hemorrhage was a shock to many across the nation and right here in the area. His passing is a powerful reminder that a stroke can affect anyone. Fox 5's Elise Edie spoke about this with Emory, Dr. Neil Winower.
Such an important topic, especially in light of news of the passing. So let's first start by discussing what stroke is and then the two types.
Yeah, a stroke or a brain attack is a medical emergency where a portion of the brain doesn't get adequate blood flow. And the reason why that's critical is that happens for minutes. You could have permanent neurological injury or even death. Now, there are two types of stroke. One is the clot type of stroke, which is the most common, which happens in 85% of the time, where a blood vessel, a plaque would break and you have a clot formed, or a moving clot called an embolus that gets pumped out to the brain and lodges in the vessel. Or you have a bleeding stroke, which is less common, which can happen about 15% of the time. The number one cause of that is severely elevated blood pressure, but you could have an abnormally dilated blood vessel like an aneurysm. You could have head trauma. You could be on blood thinners or anticoagulants and have a bleed related to that as well. So there are many causes, but it's the less common type of a stroke.
Okay, let's talk about the typical symptoms of a stroke.
Yeah, typically you'll get slurred speech, numbness or weakness on one side of the body. You may notice a field cut where your vision gets closed off. You may have something called aphasia, which is trouble with language, speaking, or reading or receptive language. You may have trouble with walking in an unstable gait. That's called ataxia. You usually see that with a stroke that affects the back portion of the brain or the cerebellum. So those are all the symptoms. I may have also mentioned you may have difficulty swallowing as well, but you get this facial weakness or droop because the muscles on one side of the face become weaker.
So Mr. Galloway had a bleeding stroke, which you mentioned is less common. So are there maybe specific symptoms that occur with bleeding strokes?
Yeah, this is really important. The skull is very protective from the outside world. It protects the brain from injury. But when the problem is internal, when it happens inside the brain and you bleed, there's no place for that blood to go. So the pressure builds up very quickly in the brain, and when the pressure builds up, that causes damage to the brain itself. And the blood itself actually can be irritating. So a lot of times patients will describe a severe headache, sometimes the worst headache of their life. They'll have also significant nausea and vomiting because that pressure on the base of the brain can cause severe nausea. They may have seizures. They may have altered mental status where they're very sluggish or sleepy. All those are much more common with bleeding type strokes than with the clot type strokes. But there's a bit of overlap, and we'll get into why that's important.
Okay, well, what is the initial management for each condition, Dr. Winower?
Yeah, the first step is to get a CAT scan of the brain immediately, because you cannot tell, I cannot tell, a neurologist and ER physician cannot tell immediately whether it's a bleed type of a stroke or a clot type of a stroke, so you get a CAT scan immediately. Once you know it's one or the other, then that's really important because the treatment is dramatically different. If it's a clot type of stroke, you're trying to get blood flow, reperfusion therapy established immediately. So you may take the patient to a lab and do a thrombus removal or called a thrombectomy. You may give them clot buster medication or medication to prevent platelets from sticking together, the cells that clot our body. You'll lower the blood pressure over 24 to 48 hours. With the bleeding type of stroke, the most important thing immediately is to lower the blood pressure within the first 6 hours. So dramatically different, get that pressure down, treat the swelling, look at the brain, follow the neurological exam. If the blood is expanding in the brain, you call the neurosurgeons. The neurosurgeons may have to go take the patient to the operating room to evacuate or remove that blood so the pressure gets reduced. So the treatment is much different. On one hand, you're trying to prevent clot formation, and on the other hand, you're actually trying to deal with the bleeding.
Final thoughts on this?
Yeah, my final thoughts are you can't tell immediately when something like that happens, but what you can tell is when something is dramatically different. Time equals brain. So you just think that if you have slurred speech, if all of a sudden you go numb or have weakness, don't get bogged down in is this a bleeding type of stroke or a clot. You just get to the hospital, let the doctors figure that out and treat it emergently, but don't sit on it. That's my take-home point. If you have any of those neurological findings, just think of it as a brain attack, just like a heart attack. Come immediately to the hospital and get assessed, and hopefully it's not a stroke, but it's important to really, time is of the essence. I can't stress that enough.
Time makes all the difference. So important, and I'm glad you tackled this today for us, Dr. Winterworth.
It's my pleasure.
Always. Of course, we appreciate you.
All right, that was our Elise Edie speaking with Dr. Neil Winnower. He's a doctor at Emory University School of Medicine. And so, they're talking about Jeff Galloway's death and how it's raising awareness, raising stroke awareness. So that is an important story there. Up next, we're checking on some of today's trending stories, including concerns over higher gas prices. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and recap some of our top stories here this afternoon. First, let's take a look at the Colin Gray trial. Closing arguments are underway in that trial. Colin Gray is the father of Colt Gray. Colt Gray is the accused Apalachee High School shooter. That shooting ended the lives of 4 people, 2 teachers and 2 students. And it happened back in September of 2024, again at Apalachee High School in Winder. So you're taking a live look there at Jimmy Berry, defense attorney Jimmy Berry, speaking. We've been following this trial. Defense attorneys are trying to get the jurors to understand that, or, they're trying to prove that Colin Gray should not be held accountable for his son's actions, while prosecutors say that he should. So let's talk a little bit more about this trial. We know that the court spent this morning addressing critical housekeeping matters during a charging conference. And in this phase, the judge and attorneys, they finalized the specific legal instructions and guidelines that the jury must follow when determining a verdict. So a key point of the discussion here during the conference was the evidence regarding the provision of a firearm to a minor, which is a central component of the state's case against Colin Gray. Now, Gray is 55 years old. He's charged with 29 felonies, including second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, and cruelty to children. Authorities allege that his teenage son, Colt Gray, carried out that September 2024 attack using an AR-15 style rifle his father gave to him months earlier as a Christmas gift. Again, 2 teachers and 2 students were killed in the shooting here. 9 others were injured. And so this case is being closely watched nationwide because it can hold a parent criminally responsible in connection with a school shooting committed by a child. And we've only seen this happen once in Michigan. The parents there, they were on trial for similar circumstances, convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to prison of at least for at least a decade. So again, this is the trial for Colin Gray, and we have heard testimony throughout this entire trial from Colt Gray's mother, Colt Gray's sister. Again, that would be Colin Gray's ex-wife and daughter, but we've heard from them on this, and his mother, Marcy Gray, told jurors that she urged Colin Gray, her estranged husband, to remove firearms from her son's access as the teen struggled with anger. The sister also testified that her father was aware of her brother's fascination with past school shooters, but allowed a rifle to remain in his bedroom. So we have, been given information about Colin Gray's home, where Colt lived as well, and it has all been important information, and we'll see what the jurors decide here. Again, this is the trial for Colin Gray. He's the father of Colt Gray, who is the accused Apalachee High School shooter. Let's talk about another important story here. We continue to remember civil rights activist Jesse Jackson, and so South Carolina is honoring him today. His casket arrived by horse drawn carriage to South Carolina's State House this morning, and you're taking a look there on your screen. Jackson will lie in state in the rotunda as the public gathers to pay their respects. And so later this afternoon, a memorial tribute will be held at the Brooklyn Baptist Church. The state's honoring of the civil rights icon comes it comes at an important time here. It comes following requests from members of the state's General Assembly as well as the family. Jackson requests from both of them. So Jackson formed Operation Push, or the People United to Save Humanity, in Chicago's South Side. And in the 1980s, he also formed the National Rainbow Coalition. So later, those 2 groups merged to become the current Rainbow Push Coalition, whose mission includes helping minority hiring in corporate America and voter registration drives in communities of color. And Jackson died at the age of 84 years old. Again, he will lie in state in his home state of South Carolina in the rotunda there. And a memorial tribute will be held at Brooklyn Baptist Church. So South Carolina there preparing to say their final goodbyes to Reverend Jesse Jackson. And Governor Brian Kemp and Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, they were at the New York Stock Exchange this morning to ring the opening bell with the Atlanta World Cup host committee. They called it exciting and very historic. And, tomorrow marks 100 days until this World Cup begins. So let's listen to a little bit of this. And that was just them ringing the bell there. So again, tomorrow marks 100 days until the World Cup begins. Atlanta will host 8 matches at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in June and July. So again, just a little bit of recapping this story. Again, Governor Brian Kemp and Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, they were at the New York Stock Exchange this morning to ring that bell. And you just heard it with the Atlanta World Cup host committee. Your time is 1:40. Let's go ahead and talk about what's trending with our Joyce Lupiani, our digital team. So let's go ahead and bring in Joyce. A good afternoon, Joyce. I almost said good morning.
Hey, it's definitely afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm good. So what's been trending today? I know there's been several stories trending online, and your first one is about parents being charged for a kid bringing a gun to school. Let's talk about that first.
So we found out about this late last week. It happened up in Hall County, and apparently an 8-year-old boy brought a gun to Myers Elementary School. So the gun was like loaded, but there wasn't like actually a bullet. It wasn't like racked. It wasn't ready to be fired. But anyway, he brought the gun and he showed it to one of his friends. And fortunately, that kid went and told somebody, a teacher, and they searched the boy and found the gun and, called in the school resource officer. So that's basically all we knew last week. We didn't know whose gun it was, how he got a hold of it, all of those details. Well, this morning we got a press release and now we know. So apparently this kid found the gun in his parents' car, and then he took it into his room like the night before and put it in his backpack and took it to school the next day and then showed it to his friends. So both of the parents, of course, they're in trouble a little bit. His mom, she turned herself in, or she was arrested last Thursday when this happened. And then the father turned himself in on Friday morning. And it is just like a misdemeanor charge. It's like reckless conduct. But, it's really fortunate that something didn't happen, that this little boy didn't accidentally, shoot his friend or shoot one of the teachers. So both mom and dad, they have posted bond and they're out of jail. But hopefully, like some other parents out there, hear about this story and realize that they really need to keep their guns locked up.
Absolutely. And we do know that just authorities across the U.S. and especially here in Georgia are just sounding the alarm on situations like this, encouraging parents to lock up their firearms so that kids don't get a hold of them. It's sad that we keep seeing stories like this here, but very glad that no one was injured here with the kid bringing the gun to the school. You also, people are also talking about some gas prices increasing, and we know that some of this is tied to the conflict going on with the U.S. and Israel with Iran. So talk a little bit about that.
Right. So every morning I look at what's called Google Trends, and I noticed there was this huge spike in people looking for gas prices. Now, it's not unusual for people to Google that and to see how much gas costs on kind of a regular basis. But I mean, there was a massive surge. So I started, reading various articles, including what we have on our website. And it seems like, the experts are pretty much saying because of what happened over the last couple of days with Iran and these attacks, that the price of oil is going to go up. In fact, Tanya, who you were talking to earlier, she actually took a phone call from somebody who was already, saying that he could see the gas prices going up in his neighborhood. So the experts is kind of, they're not really sure how much they're going to go up. Some are saying 10, 20 cents, but I also read one report that said it could be as much as like 30 cents by the end of the week. And, gas has been relatively low. I think the national average is right around $3, but the average here in Georgia, because we always run like 20 cents cheaper than the rest of the nation, is only about 280, or it was about 280. So, if it goes up like 20, 30 cents, that's going to put us at, $3. And yeah, $3 with the price of everything else. And a lot of people like myself in Georgia, we have to drive like 40, 50 miles, like one way to get to work every day. I mean, that's going to hurt. So, I mean, hopefully it's only going to be like short term. And I did see something like the oil coming in from Venezuela is going to help, but hopefully, fingers crossed, that it's just short term.
Yeah, I hope so too. Fingers crossed that this is short term. $3 is a lot for some gas, especially for people who live in cities like Atlanta and they have to travel long distances to get to work, to take their kids to school. And to run errands. So hopefully it doesn't last long. But we will monitor these gas prices. I've even pulled them up on my screen here, and you can pull it up yourself and go by going to gas prices AAA. And you can search county by county what your gas prices, your average gas prices today and the next day, whenever you want to search. Let's talk about this. I have never heard of this before. It's called a worm moon. It sounds weird. What is this?
Right. So there is going to be like a lunar eclipse early Tuesday morning. So our meteorologists have been talking about this since like late last week. And it's supposed to like take place like the total eclipse. It's supposed to take place between like 6:04 a.m. and 7:03 tomorrow morning. Unfortunately, I think Alex Forbes, one of our meteorologists, I think I heard him say that it's not going to be great viewing. We might have some clouds in the sky, but they call it that because the worm moon or the blood moon, because it's going to be like glowing red, and it's supposed to be red for about an hour. And you are supposed to be able to see this, like you can just walk outside and see it. You don't really need a telescope or binoculars, although, that might help. And if you want to take a photo, you probably need a tripod so that your camera is like really steady, because you'll need to do like a long exposure to get like a really good, photo of it. I know Alex is going to be on later today, I think, talking about this a whole lot more. And he's really the expert. I'm not. But, it's supposed to happen tomorrow morning between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. basically. And I just want to remind everybody that, if you do get some good photos, you can actually go to our website and upload them. And then we will put some of them on social media. Plus, we'll probably show a few of them like on Good Day Atlanta tomorrow. So if you get some good photos, don't forget about us and make sure to send us your photos.
All right, Joyce, thank you so much for talking about these stories trending online. I'm going to let you get back to work, and we're going to move forward with another story here. This is about a fundraising event. Our Paul Milliken covered a fundraising event in the area that's encouraging people to move. We all know that working out is good for our health, but thanks to a big event happening this weekend, your workout can be good for the entire community. So this Saturday, 8 Metro Atlanta Lifetime is it will take this event. It will host events, and it will take place this Saturday again. Fox 5's Paul Milliken has more on this fundraiser.
Hello, everybody. It's not every day that I wear a t-shirt and shorts on television, but today is a very special day. We're working out, all right, for a really good cause, too. Hanging out at Lifetime Druid Hills, which is one of many locations taking part in a big event this weekend. It's on Saturday, and it's called Move for a Lifetime. It is a day-long fundraiser starting at 9 a.m. It's very simple. You come and take a class for a $15 or $30 donation, and that money is split evenly between children Children's Miracle Network Hospitals and the Lifetime Foundation. And of course, locally, that means Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. And speaking of, we have a real children's hero this morning. Maximus is here, the champion with the medal on, and mom and dad as well. Melody, it's great to see you. How are you?
I'm amazing, Paul. So glad to be here.
So glad that you guys are up, and we've got a tired guy right here. You guys have been very busy working out this morning. I want to talk a little bit about the impact of Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. When did this organization and hospital come into your life?
Yeah, so Maximus was about 2 years old when he started having some symptoms that we were kind of concerned about. Frequent urination, very tired, losing weight very rapidly. And so we were like, let's take him in. We took him to Scottish Rite at the time, Children's, and immediately they did some tests. About 8 people came to the hospital and they diagnosed him with type 1 diabetes. Yes, so we were like, oh my God, our lives are changing forever.
Yeah, well, and then you became very familiar with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. What has this hospital meant to your family over the past few years?
First of all, Children's has saved Maximus' life. So, of course, type 1 diabetes can have its moments where we just don't know what's going to happen. So Children's has saved his life, giving us so many resources to help him, just with, his care every single day.
Yeah, and we hear that over and over from parents, that the staff at Children's is second to none. They are there for you when you need them.
Absolutely. Morning, noon, and night. Unfortunately, just yesterday, I had to make a call, and we had to take little Maximus into the hospital. But they kept saying to us and reassuring us, we're here for whatever you need.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So again, when people come to Move for a Lifetime this weekend, that money goes to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and it supports families like yours. So everyone needs to come work out, right?
Yes, come work out. So you can support little Maximus.
Absolutely. Well, or as we call him, Coach over here, because what you don't know is he's watching us with an eagle eye, like making sure we are doing the kickboxing correctly. Speaking of, our friend Joshua leading class. Wait, I'm going to interrupt for a minute, class. You all have to keep doing class.
Oh, we're in it right now.
I know you are. Wait, maybe I should just jump in. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Got it. What is happening? What is this class?
So right now, Lifetime has a new format called Burn Cardio Kickboxing, and this is our new format, Burn Cardio Kickboxing.
Okay.
What that is that's a mix of martial arts, but we just add some new music, just a brand new style of kickboxing.
Yeah, you told me before, when it comes to any kind of fitness, kickboxing, this is your jam, right?
Kickboxing is my jam. I love kickboxing. I can do it in my sleep.
I love that. Well, I can't do it when I'm awake, but that's why I'm here, to learn a little bit about kickboxing. How excited are you for Move for a Lifetime coming up on Saturday?
Well, the thing is that, first of all, I have my favorite format, and then we're doing this for a good cause, raising money to help Children's Healthcare Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
So what better way,
And a great way for people who are not members of Lifetime Fitness to get in the door, take a class, and see what this place is all about.
Yes. So if you are not a member with Lifetime at any of our locations, this weekend you can come visit Lifetime. We are asking for a $15 or a $30 donation, but please come and check us out.
Yeah. I should get to the real bottom of this. You keep saying how much fun you're having. Are you guys having fun? Are you feeling good? All right, I'm going to try it. Yeah, tell me what to do.
Here I go, hold it again. 5, 6, jab, cross, jab, knee. 2. Now grapevine, open up, jab, cross, jab, knee. 1, 2. Now grapevine, open up that curl, jab, cross, jab, knee.
You know what? I'm going to keep doing this job, and I'm going to let them do that. Move for a Lifetime coming up on Saturday. I need a drink.
I was going to pick on Paul a little bit because he needs to do a little bit of work there with them jabs and the grapevine and stuff. But that looks like a fun event there. And it looks like something that I would do and participate in. Coming up, Atlanta St. Patrick's Day Parade is kicking off soon. We'll have the details in a few minutes. Welcome back. I'm here with Tom Haynes. He will be hosting our 3 p.m. show and also be on the Pulse. But first, we got to talk about this big event happening. Patrick's Day coming soon.
Yeah, Jasmine, it's coming up. I'm Irish, or at least half Irish. So
okay, I didn't know that.
Love St. Patrick's Day. And it's coming up, right?
Yes, on March 14th, the 142nd Patrick's Day Parade will paint the Atlanta area green, paint the streets of Midtown. The parade features floats, animal groups, bands, clowns, children, I'm pretty sure candy. But, have you been to one of these parades here in this area?
No, but it looks like a lot of fun. Any excuse to get out there and celebrate.
Absolutely.
Whether it's St. Patrick's Day or anything else. I think Atlanta does a great job putting together events like this and making it easy to access for folks who live here. And why not St. Patrick's Day? I mean, they do it here at other major metropolitan cities too. New York perhaps has the biggest St. Patrick's Day parade. Of course, Boston as well, where a lot of Irish live. But that looks like a ton of fun. March 14th, huh? Coming up here.
Yeah. Looks
Couple
like
of weeks.
Lot of fun.
Yeah. Jasmine, I got to ask you something. I know you're a heck of a lot younger than I am, but we just found out what the most apparently exhausting decade is for somebody. And it's something we're going to be talking about tonight on The Pulse at 7 p.m., which of course streams right here on Fox Local and of course on our broadcast channel on Fox 5 Atlanta every night at 7 o'clock. We're going to be talking about the most exhaustive decade. And you're like, what do you mean by that? It turns out that your 40s.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Which for me have come and gone at this point, but are the most exhaustive decade. So we're going to see if we agree with that. You're not there yet, obviously, but things like stress and work and how your body is changing all happen apparently in your 40s. So we're going to cover that tonight on The Pulse at 7 o'clock. We hope you'll join us.
Yes, join Tom, and hopefully that conversation doesn't make me nervous.
As they say, been there, done that. So I have a lot of perspective for you.
Absolutely. Well, Tom Haynes for you here. Make sure you join The Pulse tonight and also the live stream at 3 p.m. All right, with Tom
7
Haynes.
p.m. The Pulse.
7 p.m. The Pulse, yes. All right, well, your time is 1:58. We are going to go to a break now and return with a 2 p.m. live stream.
Welcome in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for being here with us live. We've got a lot to cover today. We're going to cover the latest as it relates to the unfolding situation in Iran. The president just spoke at a Medal of Honor ceremony a short time ago. We also want to get the latest as to some local stories happening in our own community, and one of those deals with closing arguments today, wrapping up in the trial of Colin Gray. As you may remember, this trial has been going on for a couple weeks now, and we have reached the end. Our Kevin Stewart is there in the courtroom working to get us the latest information. He's actually just stepped out. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us live here on our Monday. I understand I was able to listen in just to some brief remarks from the prosecutor and then the defense attorney. It seems both of them are making a final plea to the jury.
Yeah, that's right. The closing arguments began about 10 minutes to 1 this afternoon. The prosecution going up first, and then the defense. That defense attorney still on this right now talking to jurors. The prosecution, bottom line, saying, hey, Colin Gray had no business buying a rifle for his then 13-year-old son, considering the mental health challenges that he had. And the prosecution says that he knew. The defense on the other side saying that, hey, this is a single dad doing the best that he can, raising 3 kids, and he had no idea what his son would do or could do. I want you to take a listen to an excerpt from the prosecution and the defense.
The one man who ensured that Cole Gray had the tools he needed to commit mass murder. Ladies and gentlemen, that man and his son are both responsible for the immense suffering that occurred on September 4th. The blood is on their hands, and the defendant needs to be held accountable for his actions that led to the murder of 4 people and numerous other injuries, both mental and physical.
You've got a lot of pressure. Everybody in this community wants to see somebody go to jail other than this young man right here. This is the person who went into the high school and shot and killed 4 people he didn't even know and injured scores of others. This is the person who needs to be punished. He made a conscious decision to do this.
All right, there you have it. The defense arguing that Colin Gray, the shooter, alleged shooter, he is still awaiting trial, is the only person who should be held accountable in this case, not the father. Now, the prosecution will have a chance to rebut after the defense goes. As I noted, the defense is still up there talking to the jurors right now. Ariel?
And it was surprising to me, but maybe not, because the defense only gets one opportunity to speak to the jury in closing. But it was interesting to hear. I watched the prosecution in their first part go for 25 minutes or so, maybe a little less. And then I got to watch, the defense, like you mentioned. Yeah, exactly. He's been going for quite some time. So it's interesting that the prosecution's going to get this final word, and you kind of feel that, tension, if you will, where he realizes this is his chance to make his case.
Right, 2 different strategies, I would imagine. The prosecution did go pretty quickly, 15, 20 minutes maybe, and they get a chance to come back after the rebut. And I imagine that they're going to put up a lot more of the visual evidence that they put up during their case, because the only bit of clear evidence that was reintroduced, if you want to say, was the body cam video that was played. That was when the officers from the Barrow County Sheriff's Office went to the suspect's home and told him what was going on, and they played that clip where he says, paraphrasing, "Oh my God, I knew it." Talking about his daughter had reached out to him, who was in the middle school, and the prosecution contends that's an example of where he knew his son was troubled and did not catch anybody by surprise, namely him, that something like this happened at Apalachee High School.
Kevin, as we wrap up here, you've been in the courtroom quite a few times covering this. Anything stand out as really significant or maybe atypical of trials you've covered in the past?
Anything
interesting?
really stands out in particular. Well, interesting. I think that I would say, referring to today, I am surprised a little bit in how the defense is approaching this. I did expect to be a little more fire and brimstone in terms of trying to get their point across to the jurors about how they believe their client is not guilty, and try to go down the rabbit hole of I guess you would say, kind of saying, opening up Pandora's box, so to speak, which is what they did in their opening statement, saying that, charging a parent for something like this is a bad idea. In fact, the prosecution alluded to that part of the opening statement by the defense, saying that, you can be held accountable for what your kids do if you are irresponsible.
Kevin, it's going to be precedent setting for sure. Yeah, exactly. And we've seen this unfold in Michigan with Ethan and Jennifer Crumbly. And just how that high school shooting led to another precedent setting case. So no doubt it's going to be interesting to follow this. I appreciate your hard work, Kevin, keeping us updated as you've covered this trial. So thanks so much. I'll let you get back into the courtroom and continue to listen. As we continue here at 2 o'clock, I know we have a lot to cover, you guys, so let's switch gears here, because the big story on everyone's mind is the conflict in Iran. And now that conflict between the United States and Iran and Israel is expanding on several fronts. We've seen attacks in other countries throughout the Middle East. We've also seen canceled flights. We've seen, at this point as well, a fourth United States service member who has died after being hurt during Tehran's initial retaliatory strikes. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and other key cabinet members are going to brief top lawmakers on Capitol Hill today. And the Pentagon says more United States forces are actually headed to the region. It's putting a lot of people on edge there in the Middle East, as you might imagine. So I'd like to let you take a listen to a shorter clip of what President Trump had to say today as he discussed the Iran attack at a Medal of Honor ceremony.
Before we begin this important ceremony, and there's no ceremony that can be much more important than this, let me provide a brief update on Operation Epic Fury. Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because they were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up. But they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped, but everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people, our country itself.
You're listening as President Trump spoke a little bit about why the United States made that decision to strike Iran. And I'd like to bring in Fox's Rebecca Castor to help make sense of all of this as we continue to look at this unfolding situation here in the region. And I think as we take a look at this, one of the first questions we really have is, what is next? What is the next action that we can expect from the United States and potentially from Iran as this conflict continues, Rebecca?
Well, Ariel, President Trump says the big wave of attacks on Iran hasn't even happened yet. So it seems like our U.S. forces are still preparing for that. As far as Iran, it's continuing its retaliatory strikes across the region, even targeting some of its Gulf partners. We've seen attacks in the UAE, in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and we also saw reports this morning of strikes in Kuwait, possibly targeting the U.S. Embassy. We're still working to confirm exact details there and if there are any injuries from State Department workers.
Rebecca, I'm curious, we got to hear from the president today about how this was really a way to deter Iran's nuclear power and the threat it might pose to the United States. Is that the sole reason that reporting is showing as the reason why the president made this call? Why did the president decide to strike Iran?
So that is certainly part of it. Another thing that the president mentioned is that he said Iran's ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and posed a colossal threat to America. And he pointed out that the Iranians already had missiles that could strike UK and US bases overseas. And they were quickly developing a ballistic missile that could come all the way to the US. So that is another reason why they decided to strike Iran when they did.
Rebecca, how have we seen this conflict affect the region? How have other nations suffered attacks, and how are they getting involved?
Yeah, so we mentioned those Gulf state partners like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others. Following the strikes on their countries, they warned Iran that they will respond defensively. And they're keeping the option for aggressive military action on the table. They haven't written that off at this point. So we could see these Gulf states start responding aggressively themselves as well.
Rebecca, final question for you here as it's just come to my mind. Do we know any further details about the 4 U.S. service members who have been killed in all of this? Any new details coming about that just yet?
No details specifically on that just yet. CENTCOM, which is out of Tampa, Florida, they said that they are going to be withholding some of those details until family members can be informed. This is all happening very quickly. And we also have to remember that this operation is still ongoing, so they might be keeping some details private since there are still service members in harm's way right now.
Makes a lot of sense. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us live and helping us make sense of the situation that continues to unfold. I appreciate it, and we'll see you back here at 3 o'clock. As we continue here at 2, I want to let you guys know there's so many questions right now as to what this conflict is going to mean for the region. And of course, even here at home, one of the things that we've seen from Congress, a lot of lawmakers are wanting answers about the conflict. We do know, like I mentioned, this afternoon, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is going to brief the Group of 8. Now, the Group of 8 are lawmakers from both the House and the Senate, and members on both the House and Senate Intelligence Committees. And the Secretary of State's going to be talking about them with this in regards to this attack on Iran, but specifically some of the decisions the president made to strike and what things could be next on the table. We do know that the president, or rather the White House, did brief the Group of 8 before their attacks on Iran. So some lawmakers were briefed, however, not all. House Republicans and Democrats held conference calls Sunday on these joint strikes on Iran, and lawmakers are pushing for votes on the war powers resolutions and a clean funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security. Congressional Democrats have planned to force a war powers vote on Iran even before the recent strikes. Now, Virginia Democrat Tim Kaine says under the Constitution, only Congress can declare war unless there's an imminent threat. And one of the things he said to reporters is that he has a war powers resolution queued up for vote this week, and he's encouraging his colleagues to assert the constitutional power vested in the legislative branch. More importantly, he says, though, haven't we learned something from 25 years of war in the Middle East? Those were his remarks to reporters. The war powers resolution requires the president to notify Congress of hostilities within 48 hours before before it were to take action. Now, the president has 60 to 90 days to withdraw troops without coming to Congress. So a lot of lawmakers are asking, what is the long-term goal and what is the exit strategy as it relates to Iran? Now, one of the things that we've seen from Republicans in Congress is they do want, some Republicans do want to force a vote. That includes Kentucky Republicans Rand Paul and Thomas Massey, along with Ohio Republican Warren Davidson. The strike comes as the Department of Homeland Security still lacks money from Congress, and the shutdown is entering its third week. There's concern about domestic terrorism as well. The House is planning to vote this week on potential funding for DHS, the Department of Homeland Security. But down the road, there could also be a request to approve money to help a reformed Iran or to restock the military. House and Senate-wide briefings are set here soon, and lawmakers are going to hear from Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, about what is next. You know, we've seen a lot of different reactions at home and abroad regarding the strikes in Iran. We've seen people cheering and celebrating here in Atlanta. We've also seen people critical of this move and concerned for what U.S. involvement in the Middle East might mean long term. One effect that we're beginning to see, however, is our oil prices. Crude oil prices have spiked in the wake of the United States and Israeli attacks on Iran. Crude oil prices rose more than 8% to $72.57 a barrel. That was Sunday night. A global benchmark crude oil jumped about 9% to $79.41 a barrel. One of the reasons for all of this is that Iran does help to control the Strait of Hormuz, where a lot of the world's oil shipments pass through. Oil tanker traffic there in the strait has paused while shipping companies take protective measures. Industry analysts say prices are going to be affected by how tanker traffic rebounds and the extent of Iranian retaliation against the United States and its allies. OPEC is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and it has agreed to boost output by 206,000 barrels a day starting in April. But Iran is part of OPEC here, so it's not clear who's going to control Iran's involvement after the death of its supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, and 40 other top officials that the United States and Israel killed. OPEC analysts do say a long war could lead to oil prices jumping more than $100 a barrel, sharply increasing prices on gas and oil products here in the United States. So no doubt this is something we're going to continue to keep an eye on. I want to make sure if you guys have questions about some of the things that we're covering here on TikTok, YouTube, drop it in the chat. I'll try to take a look through and make sure that I'm answering any questions you might have. We're still working to get answers on a lot of things related to this conflict, and no doubt a lot of people are concerned and wondering what is next. One thing I want to discuss is the partial government shutdown. What is next as this campaign against Iran is intensifying? The battle on Capitol Hill over funding for the Department of Homeland Security is turning into more of a Cold War. We've seen Democrats tight-lipped about a new proposal from the White House and what they're going to do about it. Often referred to as America's first line of defense against terrorism, the Department of Homeland Security oversees a lot of crucial agencies like the Transportation Security Administration at our airports. And it remains unfunded as this conflict with Iran is escalating. On Friday, agency employees missed their first paycheck of this prolonged shutdown, with more to come this week if an agreement is not reached. Now, congressional Republicans are hoping this heightened threat from Iran is going to ramp up the pressure on Democrats to accept a deal. Democratic leadership say they've received a new counteroffer from the White House, which they are reviewing. Deep divisions do remain. Immigration enforcement restrictions are a key sticking point. Democrats want to see immigration enforcement reformed before they move forward on any deal. But again, keep in mind the key sticking points, basically the agencies that are in question here, Customs and Border Patrol, as well as Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, are already funded through the Big Beautiful Bill. So despite a lack of funding, DHS is beefing up security and warning of potential lone wolf and cyber attacks attacks related to this ongoing conflict in Iran, as they might retaliate. Some experts are now warning the department should also raise the threat level under the National Terrorism Advisory Systems to keep Americans informed. And while negotiations are ongoing, the House is expected to vote on a new DHS funding bill at some point this week. No doubt we're going to continue to keep you guys updated as we learn any more about that funding proposal and where that stands. But speaking of lone wolf attacks and potential terroristic threats, let's talk about the situation that unfolded in Austin Sunday night. Austin, Texas, that is. The FBI is investigating a shooting there as a potential act of terrorism. 2 people are dead, 14 are wounded, and authorities have not provided a clear motive for the attack, but there's evidence the subject and his possessions involved in this indicate ties to terrorism. Video shows some of the chaos that unfolded outside of a bar in downtown Austin Sunday night. Police say 53-year-old Niagdaja Diagni, a naturalized American citizen born in Senegal, started shooting out of the window of his SUV before getting out and targeting people on the street. Police say it took officers just under a minute to take down the gunman and kill him. The incident happened after the United States announced that it had carried out coordinated attacks on Iran. Sources say the shooter was wearing a hoodie with "Property of Allah" written across the front and a shirt with the Iranian flag underneath. We've now seen pictures of that hoodie. Officials searched the residence linked to the suspect and say they found an Iranian flag and photos of regime leaders within his home. Politicians on both sides are worried about attacks on United States soil, and this is something we're going to continue to monitor. Take a listen to what Austin's police chief had to say about the situation.
Again, condolences to families. And there are families right now that are unfortunately identifying their loved ones. We have families that are at hospital rooms waiting for outcomes from surgery. That's the reality of what we're dealing with today. We know that a vehicle, a large SUV, drove several times around the block in that area. At one point, he put his flashers on, rolled down his window, and began using a pistol shooting out of his car windows, striking patrons of the bar that were on the patio and that were in front of the bar. He then proceeds westbound on 6th Street, goes to Wood Street where he parks his car, gets out, once again starts shooting his gun at some people that are walking by. He then walks east on 6th Street. At that point, everyone knows the amount of resources we use on East 6th Street, a large crowd, a large entertainment area here in Austin, where officers along with EMS and fire are staged for the weekend. And so you're talking, when this came out, we were about 56 seconds away coming from east to west Austin, and that saved multiple lives.
Well, Texas Governor Greg Abbott says they're going to respond aggressively to anyone who tries to use the current conflict in Iran to threaten Texas. One thing I want to keep you guys updated on is that we are waiting for a news conference to begin here at 2 o'clock that will involve leaders in Texas speaking about this latest threat in Austin and what they're uncovering. If I see leaders step up to the podium and we have time, we'll try to go to that live and let you guys listen in. But as of right now, it is 2:23. That news conference was set to begin at 2 o'clock. So we'll continue to keep you updated. As it continues, we are going to speak about your weather forecast with meteorologist Alex Forbes here coming up next. Bring you back a little closer to home. While we're doing that, I'll try to take a look through some of your comments and see if there's anything I can answer that you guys are curious about. We have more coming up next. Welcome back in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstad here with meteorologist Alex Forbes. Alex, it is warm outside, I must say.
It is. And the people in Canton are going, what in the world is she talking about? Right? It's the tale of two stories here across Metro Atlanta and North Georgia. So you know that wedge setup we get sometimes? We have it in place today. It's not very strong, though, which means it's only, look at that, up north and east of the city. It's 55 in Gainesville right now, but it's 75 here in Atlanta. 62 in Canton, 70 over in Covington, 75 in Eatonton. So a warm afternoon for a lot of people. I'm sorry about the others. I mean, it's a cool day up there in Gainesville. You can't really do much better than that with a pattern like this. 55 in Cumming as well, 56 in Dahlonega, 53 in Cleveland, 56 in Toccoa, and 56 over in Hartwell. Here's the other crazy thing. We're just about where we were yesterday afternoon in Atlanta, but we're 20 degrees cooler compared to 24 hours ago up there in Gainesville, 14 degrees cooler in Athens, and 12 degrees cooler there in Blairsville. So for the remainder of the day today, we're going to see some cloud cover into the evening tonight. We'll call it partly cloudy. Temperatures will slide back down into the 60s before all is said and done. And look, I mean, we had 72 as a high today, and we're up to 75. I don't think 76 or 77 are out of the question for us, given the fact that the wedge is not as strong as what we were looking at it modeled to be. How about this, though? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe even Sunday, putting some records in jeopardy. 82 on Thursday, 83 Friday and Saturday. We are forecasting to smash some records. That's the way I'm phrasing it. So 83, like I said there on Friday and Saturday, the record for both days is 80. So the second we hit that mark, we'll defeat the record. And it was a warm March in 2022. That 80-degree record from Friday comes from the year 2022. So I was trying to think about what people need to know. And this is what I did this morning.
I have to say yes, because I have started to notice the past few days, like I think this weekend I actually was searching for pollen counts in Atlanta. Like that was where we got.
And we've had a couple of high pollen count days already, but I think we're about to see a real explosion of it, but it's not going to be the big time stuff just yet. They're just going to continue to be high pollen counts. The other thing, speaking of spring, is that we spring forward this weekend. So we're going to be looking at sunrise and sunset times there, going to be an hour earlier. How about this? Your rain chances, 20% chance to see some showers Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That, of course, I like to say is an 80% chance of staying dry. That's a good way to think of it. And then a slightly higher rain chance there on Sunday. We're also in that awkward time of year where the meteorologists and the astronomers are arguing, because we say that spring has already begun. They say that spring begins in 18 days. They look at the moon and all of that. We just look at record books. That's the only thing the meteorologists care about. But you can make a good case here that the groundhog was wrong for 2026.
I think you could make that case, Alex, and I think you'd win that case.
I think I would too.
So before I let you go, I have to ask you, what is happening with this lunar eclipse?
Okay, yeah, so it's going to be kind of interesting. Unfortunately for us here in North Georgia, we're going to be in the area that we could see it, but I think we're looking at a decent amount of cloud cover tonight. So what you need to know is that if you have the opportunity to see it, it's going to be just before sunrise tomorrow morning. It's going to be in the western sky, so get your phone and your compass and find west, because it's not going to be like the sun, right? Like you can't just look up and find it. It's going to be faint. But when a lunar eclipse happens, it's not that the moon disappears, it's that it turns a coppery red color. And we are in a really unique spot here, as long as the cloud cover works out, which I don't expect it to, that you would get the red moon in the western sky and dawn in the eastern sky. There's a name for it. That name escapes me right now, but it's supposed to be cool, but the Mother Nature might have other ideas for us.
Might have other ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we were going to try to watch this, peak times to try to spot it.
6:34 a.m. is its peak.
Okay.
So there will be light in the sky, like I said, over in the eastern sky. But the totality starts just after 6.
Okay.
So I think it's like 6:04, 6:05, something like that. So if you look up at the sky, you're at 6:10 versus 6:34, you're going to see the same exact thing. It's just that the 6:34 time is like the halfway point of totality.
Got it. Alex, thank you so much.
Yep.
Thanks for letting us know. All right, we're going to switch gears here, you guys, because I want to talk a little bit about what's unfolding in South Carolina as the late Reverend Jesse Jackson is lying in state, honored by those in his community now in his home state. And one thing to keep in mind is you've seen his remains arrive there in the casket. As he arrived this morning to the South Carolina State House, his casket arrived by horse-drawn carriage, and he's going to lie in state in the rotunda as the public gathers to pay their respects. Later this afternoon, a memorial tribute is going to be held at Brooklyn Baptist Church. The state's honoring of civil rights activists and late icon happens after requests from members of the state's General Assembly, as well as the Jackson family. Jackson formed Operation Push, or the People United to Save Humanity, in Chicago's South Side. In the 1980s, he also formed the National Rainbow Coalition. Later, those two groups merged to become the current Rainbow Push Coalition, and the mission includes helping minority hiring in corporate America and voter registration drives in communities of color. Jackson was 84 years old when he passed. I also want to get you guys the latest update as it relates to the disappearance and continued search for Nancy Guthrie, because at this time we're actually seeing Savannah Guthrie and her family place flowers and walk outside of her mother's home there in Tucson, Arizona. And as we've seen this, it's been more than a month and still no answers as to where Nancy Guthrie is. We could see, as you are watching this video here, all of the community members and people from around the state and even the nation who've paid their respects and put flowers there. Savannah Guthrie with her brother and sister checking that out and paying her own tributes. And one thing that investigators have continued to say is that they think this 84-year-old woman was abducted. Despite multiple leads and ring camera images of a person seen outside the home, police have not publicly identified any persons of interest, suspects, or vehicles connected to the case. Meantime, the Guthrie family is offering a $1 million reward for information that could help bring their mother home. So let's get into a bit of a timeline here, because over the weekend, the Pima County Sheriff's Department says it was, quote, refocusing resources in the case. We don't really know what that means yet, but we are entering week 5 in the search for Nancy Guthrie. And the Pima County Sheriff's Office says that it's taking a look at the detectives assigned to the case, reviewing surveillance video, and looking at other resources as this hits the 1-month mark. In a new social media post on Friday, Savannah Guthrie pleaded for the return of her mother and said the $1 million reward her family has offered for her mother's recovery can be paid in cash. She says, please be the one that brings her home. Tips can be anonymous. And she spoke about how she just wants her mother home and return to her family. On Thursday, we saw newly released video from a neighbor's ring camera. You can see it here now, showing a dozen cars passing through the area the same morning that Nancy disappeared. Some of the activity happens around 2:30 a.m. on February 1st, around the same time that Nancy's pacemaker last synced with her iPhone. Now, the FBI did tell Fox News some of its operations in the search have been moved to Phoenix, so no longer in Tucson, and Nancy's home is reportedly going to be turned back over to her family either this weekend or early next week. So we're going to continue to keep you updated on this situation. I also want to let you know where we stand with the measles outbreak here in the Southeast and really across the nation, because at this point, the CDC is reporting that there's a new yearly record ahead as it relates to measles. The CDC says as of February 26th, the United States has recorded 1,136 confirmed cases of measles. That's 6 times more than a typical year. The majority of cases were reported in 28 jurisdictions, with South Carolina having the highest number. A total of 6 measles cases were reported among international visitors to the United States. And for all of last year, the CDC says there were 2,281 confirmed cases of measles and 3 deaths. But ultimately, doctors are concerned this number could rise as more families are choosing not to vaccinate their children with the MMR shot, measles, mumps, and rubella. As we continue here at 2 o'clock, you guys, I want to get a check of a situation unfolding in Social Circle, Georgia. We've done a lot of discussion about an ICE detention facility that's reportedly moving into the town, and city leaders have voiced their concerns on what this means for the town's infrastructure. And one thing we've seen today is that one of Georgia's senators has gone out to Social Circle to make his voice heard and stand with some of the concerned leaders there in the community. We're going to chat with our Rob DiRienzo coming up about the situation. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstad. Thanks so much for being here live with us at 2 o'clock. An ICE detention facility is set to go to Social Circle, Georgia, and a lot of leaders there have voiced their concerns about what this would mean for the town. So today, Senator Raphael Warnock went out to Social Circle, and I'd like to check in with our Rob DeRienzo, who was there for this town hall type meeting. Rob, what are the big concerns from community leaders, and what's the pushback here?
Hey there, Ariel. Well, good afternoon to you. Just as you mentioned a little while ago, Senator Raphael Warnock was joined by the mayor and city manager and other local officials around here to express their very real concerns about this 10,000-bed ICE facility here behind me. I want to take a step out of the way to show you there is work still going on right now as we speak after this. Now, leaders in this community, which is a Republican stronghold, embrace Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock's visit today. The senator visited a water treatment plant and spoke with parents at Social Circle Elementary School, which is about 2 miles away from where I'm standing. The Trump administration has determined the town would be a prime location for the $38 million mega immigration processing center. They say that the Department of Homeland Security has kept them in the dark in this town, and the senator has said the same. These city leaders say this would cripple their already strained infrastructure. The DHS has told the city it's already done an economic impact study on the city, but the city officials say they haven't gotten a copy. They're also concerned about local law enforcement getting poached to work there and losing tax revenue on the massive property and losing the fabric of their small community. Now, when Senator Warnock was out here earlier today, I asked if his main concern was this facility or all of them. Listen. Senator, is your concern specifically with this facility or the existence of these facilities at all across the country?
I'm concerned about Social Circle. I'm concerned about Oakwood, Georgia. I promised the people of Georgia that I would fight for them. You know, this is not a blue district. I'm here because there's some things more important than politics.
But is there a space for this anywhere?
Listen, I believe that we ought to deal with violent criminals on the streets of our cities and towns. And if the administration was actually focused on that, as they said they would be, I don't think we would need, I don't think the people of Social Circle would be dealing with this.
And back out here live, you can see this facility. This is as close as we've been able to get to it all day. There's a DHS agent or representative standing there. The police also have the entire road blocked off. Ariel, it's interesting to note that more than 70% of Walton County voted for President Trump in 2024, but still the people we're hearing from around here say they're not feeling heard by this current administration, and they're not hearing a lot of transparency come regarding the exact plans, the timeline, but city officials say this could be operational as early as the spring. Back to you.
Rob, you know, you hit the nail on the head with a point that I noticed. What stuck out to me was when Senator Warnock was saying, I'm here and this is not a blue district. And seems like they asked him to come and be a part of maybe a push or a resource, a lobby, if you will, to the federal government about this new facility. And it seems like maybe a growing moment of bipartisanship.
Well, Ariel, they do say that all politics is local, and I think this is an example where it really intersects. You have this community's interest in obviously wanting strong immigration laws, supporting the president, but also being very concerned about what these policies on the ground in their community look like. Again, they say they need these facilities somewhere. Just in this community, they don't have the water resources, the sewer resources, or just the manpower, the infrastructure around here to accommodate them. So very interesting conversation here. I don't know if it's bipartisanship. I don't know if anyone here is necessarily changing their party registration, but it is interesting common ground where you hear Senator Warnock talk about the common goals and the concerns of this community, him talking about representing all of Georgia, even those who vote Republican. So very interesting to see how it'll play out, but definitely an intersection here between national and local politics.
Yeah, Rob, fascinating. Appreciate you bringing this to us live and giving us an update on the situation. No doubt we're going to continue to keep all of you guys streaming along with us, updated as this facility becomes operational, maybe by early spring, like you mentioned, Rob. So thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you. Going to let you get back to reporting, and we'll see you again here later on in the afternoon. As we continue here at 2 o'clock, I want to let you guys know what happened regarding a teen takeover on the Atlanta BeltLine. So at this point, it's really remarkable because 14 have been arrested in this teen takeover on the Atlanta BeltLine. And this happened Saturday night. Police said they were notified of this planned event and they've organized increased patrols there around the BeltLine for public safety. But during this takeover, large groups of unsupervised minors gathered by the BeltLine and nearby businesses. And at one point, officers say they responded to a shots fired call in the 700 block of North Avenue, which resulted in 5 people being arrested. Shortly after, police responded to a separate location in the 700 block of Ponce de Leon Avenue for a reported dispute where additional arrests were made. Ultimately, Atlanta police recovered 10 firearms during this event, and the charges that they've levied against these 14 people, a variety of charges, including aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, obstruction, theft by receiving stolen property, terroristic threats, and among others. A 15-year-old girl was also released to a parent and charged with a curfew violation. But this has been an ongoing chapter in recent, quote, teen takeover type events. We saw one at the Atlantic Station Entertainment District where a bunch of teens gathered and arrests were made. And most recently, we saw a teen takeover happen at Cobb County's The Battery, another entertainment district. 17 arrests resulted from that one, and now 14 from this one here on the BeltLine. But one thing to keep in mind is that police say they've arrested 2 17-year-old organizers who helped plan the gatherings that happened at the Battery on February 21st. So this is just an ongoing situation that police are continuing to monitor. And one thing you can do if you want to know how to get involved with a situation like this, maybe you were there along the BeltLine or in the Battery on Cobb County back in February, send your information to police. They say they'd love to take a look at any evidence, video, or other footage regarding these teen takeovers. In the meantime, I want to get you an update as to what the latest is in a case where an 8-year-old allegedly brought a gun to school. At this point, 2 Gainesville parents are now facing charges after investigators say their 8-year-old son brought a handgun to Myers Elementary School last week. This has been an ongoing topic of concern for a lot of parents in Hall County, and ultimately the Hall County Sheriff's Office says Heather Thai Rodriguez, a 31-year-old, was arrested Thursday afternoon after the initial investigation. The child's father, Christian Ruben Rodriguez Martinez, another 31-year-old, also turned himself into the Howell County Jail on Friday afternoon. Each parent is facing charges of reckless conduct, a misdemeanor for allegedly leaving the weapon unsecured and accessible to their son. But police say their preliminary investigation found the second grader took the handgun from the console of his parents' vehicle and brought it into his room Wednesday evening. And then the next morning, February 26, he took that gun to school. At around 8 in the morning Thursday, deputies say the boy showed the firearm to a fellow student who then told a teacher. The school's principal searched the child and was able to confiscate the weapon and immediately notify the school resource officer launching this investigation. Investigators say the handgun had a loaded magazine, but no round in the chamber. The mother was able to post a $1,300 bond and released from jail late Thursday night, and the father posted a $1,300 bond and was released Saturday morning. We'll keep you updated as this situation unfolds. But another tragic situation that we are actually following involves a child who was shot just this morning. And as we continue to try to get details as to what unfolded with this, we're getting a better understanding because police are telling us that it was the brother of this child who was responsible. So let's get into it because this unfolded at the park at Somerset Apartment Complex in Stone Mountain. A child under 10 was shot and rushed to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. This happened around 2 a.m. this morning, and DeKalb County Police are the ones investigating. Police believe that the victim's 21-year-old brother, Christopher Fields, had picked up his gun to put it away, and it went off, shooting the child in the next room. We're working to get more information about the situation, but our Tyler Fingert is following up on this and plans to join us live here coming up at 3 o'clock. So we'll talk more about how this unfolded. As it continues, we are going to check in with our Doug Evans here coming up next about a shooting investigation unfolding in Tyrone, Georgia. That's straight ahead. Well, welcome back in, everyone. Thanks so much for streaming here with us live at 2 o'clock. I'm Ariel Onstadt, and we have a heartbreaking story involving another child shot, a little 4-year-old boy who's fighting for his life in Fayette County. Our Doug Evans went out to try to get more information, and Doug's joining us live. Doug, this is just absolutely tragic.
It is absolutely tragic, Ariel, and we're learning more about this story moment by moment. It happened on Saturday. Investigators here at the Tyrone Police Department aren't saying much about the case other than the fact that it appears to them right now that the shooting was accidental. Now, we don't know if it was the child, a 4-year-old little boy, who discharged the firearm, or if it was someone else in the home here. Here's what we do know. On Saturday afternoon, just afternoon, Piedmont Fayette Hospital was on lockdown when a mother came in with her 4-year-old little boy with a gunshot wound to the head. We're told that that's standard protocol because authorities don't know whether that violence happened nearby, maybe out on the road if the child was still in danger or whatever. So they locked down the emergency department. And as a result, police cars from all over Fayette County, all kinds of law enforcement agencies descend on the hospital there. The mother did bring the child in, we're told, had a gunshot wound, a very grievous wound, we're told. The child is alive. And we're told that this wound, as you can imagine, a gunshot wound to the head of a 4-year-old little boy, very, very, very serious. Here's some other elements that I've been able to find out this morning on this case. The 911 call, there was a 911 call first from a Tyrone resident saying that a child had received a head injury. And so police and EMS were headed to this Tyrone home. Shortly after that came the alert from Piedmont Fayette Hospital of a little boy shot in the head at the hospital. They were able to connect that information together then and find out that it was the same little boy that everyone was talking about, that the mother had taken the child in her car to the hospital while somebody else at the home called 911. And so Tyrone police are investigating along, they're being assisted by the GBI, who has also been brought in to help with the case. But again, the word from the Tyrone Police Department so far is that it appears in this ongoing investigation that this was nothing more than an accident. They don't see any foul play, they said, or intent to harm the child. So we're waiting on further details to kind of clarify that. When they say it was an accident, that still leaves a lot of information open to be discussed, and we expect that that information, Ariel, will at some point be forthcoming.
Doug, yeah, you know, because your mind goes to, okay, if it is an accident, if that is true, did the child accidentally shoot themselves? Did someone else accidentally shoot the child? Like you said, a lot of questions. Anything else that you, as you're covering this, and I know it's coming to you moment by moment, any other big questions that you have that you're trying to get answered today?
You know, I think at some point there's a lot more, Ariel, that's going to be coming out about the case as it becomes known about the family, as it becomes known about what happened. And so there is a lot more that is kind of smoldering right now that I think at some point is going to come out. We're going to learn more about it.
Doug, thanks so much for joining us live and making sense of this story. I know that you were working on something and then switched gears when you got news of this. Weekend shooting, I feel like these things may happen fairly often in a big city like Atlanta, but in a smaller place like Tyrone, it's definitely going to raise some questions. So no doubt you'll be on top of it and working to get some answers for us.
Yeah, very much a community happening. This is a small town, as you say, Ariel, and so news of this is starting to spread and very much affects the community here.
Doug Evans, thanks so much for joining us live. I'll let you get back to gathering information. And as we move on here, you guys, I want to continue to keep you updated on some other stories that we're following. I want to talk a little bit, switch gears here, and talk about something unfolding in Atlanta coming up, just so you're all aware, because March is the month that includes St. Patrick's Day. And we've gotten some questions, you guys wondering what is going to happen with Atlanta's annual St. Patrick's Day parade, and I can tell you that is set for March 14th. There are more than 100 entries in this year's parade, so expect it to last for quite a while. But this is a big tradition. It's dating back to the 1800s, and this parade's going to return to Midtown Atlanta this month. And one of the things that we see, as it's a presentation from both the Irish Network Atlanta and Atlanta's St. Patrick's Day Foundation, is that we see a lot of different people from all walks of life hit the streets of Midtown, specifically Peachtree Street. And this year, the parade's going to start noon, Saturday, March 14th, at the intersection of Peachtree and 15th Street. Organizers say there's going to be a lively celebration with Irish heritage, music, and plenty of green. If you want to participate in the parade or volunteer, you can find more information at atlantastpats.com. And we'll continue to keep you updated as we learn any new details about this parade. But let's talk a little bit about something that is drawing concern here nationally. I'd like to talk about a deal that is unfolding between Paramount and Warner Brothers. Two streaming services could be joining forces. And if regulators approve this, Paramount Skydance's acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery will be quite significant. Let's talk about why. Because Paramount Plus and HBO Max will be combined, and the services would have about 200 million subscribers. Last week, Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery said they struck a deal to sell Warner after Netflix backed out of the bidding war. Paramount has not said how much a combined service would cost or what it would be called, but this is drawing a lot of concern from watchdogs, regulators, and others taking a look at how this could be one of the largest media mergers in history. It would essentially hand billionaire Larry Ellison and his son David unprecedented sway over American media. They would own CBS and CNN under one roof, HBO Max and Paramount Plus fused, Warner Brothers and Paramount Pictures all sharing a parent company. That's on top of the tech and real estate empire that Larry Ellison already owns. He's Oracle's chief technology officer, so of course also helping to found that software company. But him and his family, Larry Ellison and his family, are also close ties with President Donald Trump, and he is considered the sixth richest person in the world. In last August, the Ellisons took control of Paramount in an $8 billion merger with Skydance, the entertainment company run by David Ellison, Larry's son, and owned mostly by Larry. Weeks later, Paramount Skydance lobbied for that hostile $111 billion bid for Warner Brothers Discovery, which had already agreed to sell itself to Netflix. But now, as we know, that is not going to bear fruit, it does appear. So we're going to continue to keep you updated on this deal, what it means for the future of media as we look at this giant merger and whether or not it would be approved. But I want to bring you back here to the desk. We have about 30 seconds here real quick with Tom Haines. So what are we looking at?
Well, Ariel, it's a busy Monday afternoon of news. We got an APD news conference coming up from Atlanta Police on their efforts where it concerns gangs, guns, and drugs, they're calling it. They're working with federal authorities to tackle those issues. You know, all of this, of course, in advance of the FIFA World Cup. That is, we are going to be on the world stage. And so Atlanta Police are not sparing 1 second in the preparations of getting ready for that huge event. We're going to have the world basically coming to our city. So they want to clean things up. And in the interest of the residents, of course, who live here too. We have the latest on the Savannah Guthrie case out of Tucson, Arizona. Savannah Guthrie, the anchor of the Today Show on NBC, seen with her family walking outside the mother's home.
Yep.
Nancy Guthrie, who of course is still missing. That family absolutely heartbroken. Plus, we're going to get the latest on Iran. We're going to hear the latest on what our military objective and the efforts are as they unfold, literally as we speak. So we're going to check in with the president and our team in Washington, D.C., covering all things Iran coming up here in the 3 p.m. streaming hour, Ariel.
Awesome, Tom. Thanks so much. It does look like the UN is currently meeting to discuss Iran, and the Security Council is discussing next steps there. So we're going to continue to keep you guys updated. I'm Ariel Onstadt. More to come with Tom at 3.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. I'm your host, Tom Haines, live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom as we kick off another busy week of news this afternoon. A lot to bring you up to date on, a lot of live events happening right now, including we're awaiting a news conference from Atlanta Police set to happen any moment here. A big news conference. Some big headliners are going to be there, including the Chief of Police, the Fulton County Sheriff, and others to bring us up to date on their efforts to confront what they're characterizing in this news conference as gangs, guns, and drugs. It is a huge undertaking on the part of Atlanta Police, an effort that they've been working on for quite some time. They do brief the media when it warrants. Obviously, today that is the case. So we're going to join that news conference live as they are joined not only, as I said, by local authorities, but federal officials as well to discuss the efforts to tackle those important issues. So stand by for that coming up live. As we turn now to another big story that's unfolding in our area here today, a child shot and wounded at the park at Somerset apartment complex in Stone Mountain. This unfolding just within the past 24 hours. The child's hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries. Want to see if we can get out to Tyler Finger. I know he can't hear me, but I'm wondering if he can hear our production team to go out to Tyler. All right, we're going to connect with Tyler here coming up in the next couple of minutes. He's having some technical issues to bring us the latest on the events that led up to that shooting. We always hate when a child is involved, but that indeed is the case here, where it concerns that story again happening in Stone Mountain. If Tyler can hear us, Tyler, you are standing by at the courthouse there. Bring us the latest on what happened here.
Yeah, sorry, it's just been incredibly low audio. I'm getting in my ear. Normally it's a lot louder. But what we know, there was a shooting that happened early this morning, just before 3 o'clock at the park at Somerset apartment complex. That's in the Stone Mountain area of DeKalb County. We know that this appears to be a tragic accident when it comes to this shooting. And that's because investigators say that a 21-year-old ended up picking up his gun to try to put it away, and then it went off, striking his younger brother, who is under the age of 10. Obviously, you're looking at video from the scene when our crew arrived overnight. Lots of police responded out there, and so investigators say 21-year-old Christopher Fields picked up his gun in his apartment to put it away, as I said, and then it went off, shooting his brother in the next room, and this happened early this morning, just before 3 a.m. DeKalb County police say Fields' brother, who is younger than 10, was rushed by medics to a hospital where he is stable at this hour. Fields was arrested and booked into the DeKalb County jail. We've learned that Fields faces a reckless conduct charge. This morning's incident comes after a dangerous month for kids in Metro Atlanta. In early February, a teen was killed in Gwinnett County after a gun went off while being cleaned. There have also been several cases where children found a firearm and either wounded or killed themselves. DeKalb County police say that's the incident, and incidents like these are preventable if they're locked up safely. It even offers gun safes at its 4 precincts Monday through Friday, and they urge people to go pick those up. And about an hour or two ago, I spoke to people who lived in that community, in that apartment complex, who said that they are just shocked about what happened. Let's take a listen to what they told me.
Sad because I have grandchildren. I had 9-year-old children at one time, and they innocent. He don't know what happened other than he's playing with his brother, and the gun goes off. You know, how you gonna explain when he comes home? Where's my brother at? The brother's in jail and they never gonna understand. And that's the sad part about it. The 20-year-old, he may, but he may not, you know, mentally. It's just, I mean, it ain't the first and won't be the last.
I think it's very sad. I have a 12-year-old, and I couldn't imagine something like that happening to one of my children. I'm very sad for the family as a whole, because emotionally, mentally, that 9-year-old, even though he's going to survive, he's going to be scarred for life by that, because he was harmed physically by his brother, whether intentional or not, and the brother has to now deal with that emotionally and mentally for the rest of his life, because whatever was going on, he harmed his 9-year-old brother and could have possibly killed him. That's going to be something that both of those boys have to carry for life.
And as we come back out here live, you may be wondering why we are at the DeKalb County Courthouse. Tom, we're here because we just spoke to DeKalb County prosecutors, not specifically about this case, but more about the general trend we have been recently seeing, where we've had a number of kids either killed or injured. We had one up in Sandy Springs just within the last 2 weeks where that 2-year-old was able to reach a firearm and end up shooting himself. We had a case in Gwinnett County earlier in February where a 17-year-old was in a motel room and was shot by someone else in a different motel room who was cleaning the gun and ended up going through the wall and striking and killing him while he was in that motel room. And so we were talking to DeKalb County prosecutors just about cases like this and how they're really trying to take things like these seriously, because they say irresponsible gun ownership could end up putting people at risk. And we know that, unfortunately, in a lot of these situations, kids could be at risk. And so they were emphasizing just how they are using their child crimes unit to really go after people like this, to make sure that if you own a weapon, that you are held accountable if something like this would happen. And obviously, they could not talk specifically about the case this morning, but we do know, according to the jail log, that Fields is facing a reckless conduct charge, and obviously it'll be up to prosecutors to decide if they want to upgrade that or how they're going to prosecute it. But obviously they take things like this seriously because they want to make sure kids continue to be kids and not have to either be wounded or even killed if someone gets access to a weapon when they shouldn't.
Well, as you say, it's case after case of heartbreaking gun violence involving children. Real quick, before we let you go, Tyler, the gun buyback or repossession program, you listed a time and a date. I'm not sure if you have that handy right now, but it's important if folks want to take advantage of that or to get safety locks. Give us a little bit more information real quick about that.
So DeKalb County Police offer at all 4 of their precincts Monday through Friday. You can pick up a gun lockbox. We've highlighted a number of times here on Fox Local and Fox 5. If you come to the county courthouse here at DeKalb, the district attorney's office also is giving out lock boxes. They also have trigger locks as well. So they want to make this as easy as possible to make sure that if you have a weapon in a home, you can always keep it locked up. And the gentleman who is part of the unit that helps give out these lock boxes, he's an investigator with the DA's office. He says it's so simple to use. Like, you can keep it locked up, and within 2-3 seconds, you can end up taking it out of that lockbox and being able to use it if it comes to that. So they say there's no reason not to keep it locked up when you're at home.
It's a great resource, Tyler, that we hope a lot of people will take advantage of in the interest of keeping children safe. Tyler Fingert reporting live for us from the DeKalb County Courthouse this afternoon. Tyler, thanks. Want to turn our attention now overseas for a moment and focus on Iran, the conflict expanding on several fronts. Let's get out to Fox's Rebecca Castor at the United States Capitol. Rebecca, where lawmakers are set to be briefed today by Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the happenings in Iran. Bring us up to date on the latest of the Secretary's address to lawmakers today.
Yes, so Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be here on Capitol Hill later today. Today he's going to brief the top lawmakers in Congress. This is the Gang of 8. They are going to get the first briefing. The rest of Congress will get that classified briefing tomorrow. And we know that Democrats specifically are going to want to hear from the Trump officials on what was this imminent threat that President Trump says was the reason they launched this mission without approval from Congress. This deals directly with the War Powers Resolution. Under that resolution, the president can only launch an attack if there is an imminent threat. President Trump has said that imminent threat was the Iranians' ballistic missiles. They've been stockpiling this for months, and what we heard from President Trump earlier today is they had an indication that they already had missiles that could target UK and US bases overseas, and they were fearful that soon they would have a missile that would be able to reach the US.
Rebecca, we've heard from the president on a couple of occasions regarding what's happening in Iran. He said that this conflict could last another couple of weeks. What about other nations over there, particularly our allies, both not only in the Middle East, but our European allies and their involvement in all this?
Yes, so we did see a delay from the European nations over the weekend, not wanting to get into this from the start. We are seeing that is slightly changing now. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is allowing the U.S. to use UK bases overseas as launch pads for some of their strikes. That took some time for him to agree to that, but it seems that now that we're 3 days into this now, seems like other countries want to get involved with this mission to change Iran.
Let you go, Rebecca, since you're there at the United States Capitol, at the center of all this. Do we know any more about what happened when Kuwait downed a couple of our fighter jets, mistakenly, obviously? We understand that those service members who were flying those planes were able to eject, are okay. They escaped with only minor injuries, but any fallout from that?
So we did speak with some military sources who tell us behind the scenes, they're not directly involved, but it appears that there was a breakdown in communications between the Kuwaiti Air Defense and the United States. The Kuwaiti Air Defense was unaware that these U.S. fighter jets were going to be over their airspace at this time, and CENTCOM is still investigating this. They're not publicly commenting, but it appears that their air defense system was put on automatic. So they shot down those U.S. fighter jets, not realizing they were American soldiers flying those planes. But again, really remarkable that all 6 members on board were able to eject safely, and they are doing well, and they've been recovered.
And finally, before I let you go, because I always ask a little bit of a nuanced question, something that only you can tell me, but you're there at the United States Capitol. Do you notice any kind of heightened security on the Capitol grounds, or in Washington, D.C. in general, now that we're on this sort of heightened state of alert and war footing?
Yeah, I can tell you, Tom, we're not seeing it quite so visually. We were wondering if there would be higher fencing put up around the Capitol today, similar to how things go during the inauguration, during elections, during the State of the Union. We're not seeing any of that. We have been told that lawmakers were told to expect advanced screenings. They've been told that there are going to be additional canines around the Capitol. We haven't really seen that, but a lot of those things are going to be behind the scenes things that we're not going to notice with our eyes.
All right, Rebecca Castor, very, very interesting perspective there from the U.S. Capitol. Rebecca, thanks. We now know that a fourth U.S. service member has died after being injured during Tehran's initial retaliatory strike. The Secretary of State, as I mentioned, and other key cabinet members are going to brief top lawmakers on Capitol Hill today as the Pentagon says that more U.S. forces are headed to that region, and the president acknowledges that more U.S. casualties may be in the offing as they advance their objective and their mission in Iran. The president spoke today. Let's listen to part of what he had to say.
Before we begin this important ceremony, and there's no ceremony that can be much more important than this, let me provide a brief update on Operation Epic Fury. Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because they were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up. But they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped. But everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people. Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat. I was very proud to have knocked out the Iran nuclear deal by President Barack Hussein Obama. That was a horrible, horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them.
All right, President Trump speaking this morning about our efforts in Iran, bringing us up to date on the mission there. We know at least 4 U.S. service members killed in the line of duty so far. The president speaking, sort of updating us on the mission there. As I said, the Secretary of State, other cabinet members on Capitol Hill this afternoon doing the same with lawmakers. As events continue to unfold in the Middle East, of course, we will keep you informed. Now I want to get you to a news conference on the part of Atlanta Police, where the chief, Darren Shearbaum, and other top officials are updating us on the gang crimes effort. Let's listen in.
Doorbell camera footage, Google Nest. Please make sure you are sharing your videos. And then last but not least, we urge you all to connect with Connect Atlanta.
Thank you, Chief Span. So it's a new year. Many will go out and watch the lunar eclipse tonight, or this morning. We're going to change our clocks on Saturday, but then the collective team that you see behind me that is represented at each heat wave, we're going to be back at work this year. And so we will continue this year, 3 initiatives being executed by local, county, regional, and federal partners. going after those that present a danger to our communities. If you're a drug dealer in this region, if you're a gang member in this region using that gang affiliation to further crime, or you are possessing guns illegally, you're eventually going to meet Heatwave, Kickstart, or Fall Frontier. We're going to be there. And you're going to be aggressively prosecuted if you decide to commit crimes here. Again, I want to thank our partners, our U.S. Attorney, our Sheriff, the ATF, the FBI, South Fulton, the Georgia State Patrol, the District Attorney of Fulton County, everyone that believes in doing the mission to keep Atlanta, Georgia safe. And I just want to again thank the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department. I see your work each and every day. I see the hard work you do each and every day for the city, and I'm very, very proud of you all. So we will take questions from members of our media. This time we can help you report this back to your viewers, listeners, and readers. They have, and our team regularly briefs other agencies and other law enforcement collective groups on how we share information, marshal resources, and go in the neighborhoods looking for specific individuals doing specific things. So I believe it is a model to be emulated across the country. It keeps us trusted by the community. It also makes sure we're being good stewards of the resources that are given to us by the taxpayers. And I think it's important to note, we initiated Heatwave in 2022. When we were going to see the highest numbers of homicides in Atlanta, Georgia in over 30 years. 171 people lost their lives that year to homicides in our city. And as we ended last year, the homicide rate in Atlanta, Georgia had dropped by 42% since that last year. This is one of those reasons. There's many reasons why we brought it down, but our collective approach to fighting violent crime is one of them. Non-fatal shootings has dropped by 24% since 2022. So it is a model that works. It is a model that can be used across the country, and we're glad to anyone that comes to us to show how we're doing it here.
Chief, could you tell us how many of these people arrested last year were convicted felons, and is this something that you guys have seen over the years when you're tracking these different suspects?
Yeah, we have a challenge in the region with recidivism. We will give you the total numbers of convicted felons. I know in Deep Freeze it was 35. In Heat Wave, it was 34, and then it was 36 in Kickstart. What we really need to focus on is how many of them are recidivists that had been convicted 3 or more times of committing felonies in our state or other jurisdictions. Those are individuals that we would ask the judges, when you have that case in front of you, pay attention. This is an individual that needs the intervention of the criminal justice system and needs the attention of the judges. No low bonds, no laughable sentences, but these are individuals that present threats to our communities. And so when this team works hard to place individuals in a courtroom, we ask the judges to take note of those that are recidivists, that have been convicted multiple times and should never ever be possessing a weapon again on any of our streets or in any of our parks.
All right, Chief Darren Shearbaum with the Atlanta Police Department holding a news conference on their effort to confront gangs in our city with Operations Kickstart, Heat Wave, and Deep Freeze. The chief talking about their success rate in combating gang-related violence in our cities, interacting with judges who implement the sentences for these alleged criminals, and their efforts to net these people and get them off the streets, saying that if you're a member of a gang and you commit a crime, you will encounter one of these agency efforts. So the chief coming out periodically praising his department and their efforts to combat gang violence on the streets of Atlanta. Wanted to dip in for a couple of minutes to listen to part of that news conference and the Atlanta police chief. As we continue, it is a Monday afternoon. The weather not too bad out there, but what is in store for the rest of the work week? We're going to check in with meteorologist Jonathan Stacy in just a second. Welcome back, everybody. So happy you're with us on Fox Local for the 3 p.m. streaming hour. Tom Haynes, joined by meteorologist Jonathan Stacy, who's been tracking our weather for us. Not off to a bad start on this Monday. There are some clouds out there, but who's complaining,
No one's mad, especially when temperatures manage to defeat the clouds and rising to the 70s, and that's where we are at this hour. 76 degrees here in Atlanta, 77 from LaGrange to Thomaston out to Eatonton. So a really nice day for the majority of us. However, to the north and to the east is where a wedge is large and in charge, and temperatures have suffered across the northeastern quadrant of the state. It looks like the epicenter of the wedge is Gainesville, where the current temperature is a meager 55 degrees, some 21 degrees cooler in Gainesville right now compared to Atlanta, and that's only a 45 minutes drive down to the south and to the west. Look at these wedge temperatures. Commerce, 56 degrees, Hartwell, 54. The same for Toccoa, going up to the corner of the state. Clayton, 52 degrees. Dahlonega, 56 degrees. Meanwhile, in LJ, you have managed to find your temperatures wandering into the mid 60s as you are just on the edge of the wedge. What a change over yesterday for many locations, especially that are in the wedge zone. Gainesville, some 21 degrees cooler than you were just this time yesterday. 15 degrees cooler in Athens, 13 in Blairsville, 12 in Canton. Meanwhile, if you're outside of the wedge, you can definitely feel the warmth. So here's how the forecast looks for the remainder of the day. We'll loosen our grip on the 70s and we'll fall into the 60s. So we've had a fair amount of cloud cover, but our clouds have not been as thick and as low hanging as those clouds have been as you look out to the north and to the east. In terms of the temperature trend over the next few days, we're going to take another dip tomorrow because that wedge will be firmly in place for the day. I think Atlanta may be a wedge rider, meaning we'll be right on the cusp of the edge of the wedge. So our temperatures may manage to sneak into the lower 70s. We'll just have to see how the day goes. But generally, when you think about the temperatures, just consider Tuesday to be the coolest of the days, but still above average for this time of the year. In fact, our average high is 62 degrees. We'll look for a high of 66 at least tomorrow, and then a short stay in the high 70s for Wednesday, and then near record-breaking temperatures in store for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as we wander into the 80s. So as we look at the potential records for Thursday, the current record stands at 81 degrees, set back in 1955. We're forecasting a high of 82. A pair of 83s for Friday and Saturday. Those, if those were to verify, they would definitely defeat the records currently set at 80 degrees. Keep in mind, this is the first full week of March, and generally temperatures in the 80s are definitely not allowed. So this would be something that is quite unseasonable. With that, the plants are speaking and they are giving way to pollen. The bees are out and they are transferring that pollen from one plant to another, but it's the trees that are really causing the issues right now. So if you are a sufferer, you'll definitely need to make sure you get up on those allergy meds. Meanwhile, we're going to spring forward. We'll do that Sunday morning as we transition here. I think that is an older graphic they're talking about daylight saving time coming to an end, but we're going to initiate that, and it starts once again on Saturday, and we will lose an hour of sleep, which will gain more daylight as you get into the second half of your day. Here's a look at your Fox 5 Storm Team 7-day forecast here. There's a lot to see here, and basically what you should take away is tomorrow's going to be kind of the odd ball of the day, of the week, 66 degrees with plenty of cloud cover, but then we break free from the clouds by the second half of the day, and that's when I'm curious about temperatures trying to sneak into the 70s, but 70s are definitely in store for Wednesday, and then 80s will reign for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And at this point in time, I don't see any really big significant drop-offs in the temperature in terms of rain and storm chances. We'll also experience a surge in dew points. And so with the rise in humidity, we will have the fuel to crank out a few rumbles of thunder. But I think our better day for rain, in contrast to Saturday and Sunday, is actually next Monday.
So we're not only feeling springy, and I think from what I can see here, we've turned the corner into spring. You guys call it March 1st, which is today.
For sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you can see that's reflected in the temperatures and the kind of rainy chances in the afternoon.
Sure.
It's kind of setting up this summertime rain pattern. But did you say that we're going to be turning the clocks springing
Yeah,
forward.
we're going to spring forward
This weekend?
Isn't that amazing? It's coming.
I felt
a
like that
bit-
came out of
yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah, it's coming a bit earlier this year, just based on the way the calendar's set up. Nothing has changed in terms of the timing of it all generally, but we are just on the earlier end of the cycle. And that makes sense because March and February were these perfect months, if you will, that started out on Sunday. So that's just exactly why in the Gregorian calendar you have, it being the earliest as it possibly could be for us to move the time forward. But it is time to do so. And so as we get into next week, we will have sunsets that are in the 7 o'clock hour, and we'll be and then as we get into, spring officially by the 22nd of March, we will have our sunsets that are much closer to the 8 o'clock hour, literally saying going down at around 7:52 on the first day of spring. So March is really delivering all the vibes after just kind of the raw and rugged winter we had, and all of just kind of the threats of severe weather, or winter weather, even if they didn't pan out. However, this uptick in temperatures and more sunshine will lay the groundwork for us to experience probably what will be a number of run-ins with severe weather as we get deeper into the season. So an early start to spring oftentimes just means an early start to the warmth and to the pollen and to more daylight, but also the payback of the storms.
Well, I know a lot of people who, they get home, they want to go out running or walking or just be outside, and they want that extra hour of daylight. Will rejoice.
I know.
After this weekend.
You and me both.
Indeed.
All
right. Jonathan, thanks. I want to talk to you about remembering the late civil rights activist Jesse Jackson Jr., because they did just that in South Carolina. They honored Jackson, his casket arriving by horse-drawn carriage to the South Carolina State House, carried by what appear to be the state troopers there. He'll lie in state in South Carolina in the Rotunda as the public gathers to pay their respects. Later this afternoon, they will have a memorial at the Brookland Baptist Church honoring Jackson. And then a memorial tribute will also be held a little bit later on, even still in the afternoon. The state's honoring the civil rights icon comes following requests from members of the state's General Assembly as well as the Jackson family. He formed Operation PUSH, or the People United to Save Humanity, in Chicago's South Side. In the 80s, he also formed the National Rainbow Coalition. Later, those two groups merged to become the current Rainbow PUSH Coalition, whose mission includes helping minorities hiring in corporate America, voter registration, drives in communities of color. Jackson, 84 years old, a two-time presidential candidate. So the state of South Carolina honoring him, remembering him, and his body there lying in state. I want to talk about the latest in the search for Nancy Guthrie. And you're seeing video here of the family gathered outside the home. You could see Savannah Guthrie there on the far right, looking at all the flowers and offerings of remembrances and tribute and sympathies for that family, as authorities report that they are refocusing resources in that case as we enter week 5 in the search for Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Savannah Guthrie. She went missing from her Tucson area home back on February the 1st. Authorities believe that she was taken from her home against her will in the middle of the night, showing us that Ring doorbell camera, which new video reveals at the time multiple vehicles passing through that area. The Pima County Sheriff's Office says that it's using its resources to review the surveillance video as the search for Nancy hits the 1-month mark. On Friday, in a new social media post, Savannah Guthrie pleaded for the return of her missing mother, saying that the $1 million reward her family is offering for the recovery of Nancy can be paid in cash. That is the level of desperation this family is feeling, and you can understand why. The newly released video from the neighbor's Ring camera showed dozens of cars passing through that area. So where we stand in the investigation into finding Nancy Guthrie remains a mystery, but the family emerging in unison today, just looking at all of the gifts of well wishes for their family. Your heart really goes out to them as their mother remains missing. As we continue, we're going to get an update in the Colin Gray trial, closing arguments underway, and we're going to bring you part of them as we continue. Welcome back, everybody. You're watching the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. I'm Tom Haynes with you live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. We're so happy you're with us on this Monday afternoon as we kick off the work week, bring you up to date on all the big stories happening this afternoon. So whether you're watching on our streaming app on Fox Local on your mobile device, we're certainly happy you're with us this afternoon, or through one of your streaming services on your home TV. If you're with us on TikTok, we appreciate that as well, or YouTube at Fox 5 Atlanta, or if you're listening to us on the radio, 107.9 HD2 FM. We're certainly glad you're with us this afternoon as we cover a lot of ground here, including closing arguments underway in the trial of Colin Gray, who faces 29 felony charges tied to the September 4th, 2024 shooting at Apalachee High School. Jurors have heard conflicting testimony from family members, Gray himself, about warning signs, firearm access, and efforts to address the teen Colt Gray's behavior, all right? That's the centerpiece of this whole trial, whether Colin Gray permitted his son Colt, who, according to prosecutors, he knew was mentally disturbed, okay, and yet provided him the opportunity to access those firearms in the lead up to the Apalachee school shooting. That is according to prosecutors. So what we're going to do right now is play you both sides here, closing arguments from both the defense and the prosecution in this case. Let's listen.
41 seconds. On September 4th at 10:22 in the morning, Colt Gray opened fire in Apalachee High School for 41 seconds. Those 41 seconds forever altered the lives of the students of Apalachee High School, their parents, and everyone in this community. At 10:22 a.m., Christian acted and became a hero. He attempted to push the shooter out of his classroom, and when he was shot, Christian's last act on this earth was to shut the door to his classroom to protect his friends. In Ms. Ryan's room, the teachers and students acted. Ronaldo ensured the door was barricaded. and Landon held Taylor's hand when she needed someone. Ariana tried to keep Taylor awake, and Miss Ryan attempted to put a tourniquet on Natalie's arm and comforted her. Miss Irmy acted. Her last act on this earth was to push her door shut to protect her students. When the shooting started, Coach Aspinwall acted. He went outside his classroom to see if he could help. Coach Phoenix acted. After being shot, he crawled back into his room and used his last bit of strength to shut his classroom door to protect his students. Valerie Lancaster acted. She used her training from Girl Scouts and stopped the bleed to save Coach Phoenix's life. And Sweet Mason, he didn't even have the opportunity to act. On September 4th at 10:22 a.m., SRO Donovan Boyd yelled into his radio, "Active shooter."
Active shooter. Active shooter. But we have an active shooter at Apalachee High School.
And at that moment, every law enforcement in Barron County and every law enforcement officer near Barrow County acted. 58 agencies and 400 law enforcement officers came to Barrow County to answer the call for help. Within a minute of hearing those first shots, SROs Boyd and King took the shooter into custody and saved Zane Zinni's life. He was in that last hallway seconds from being shot by Colin Gray. Sheriff Judd Smith and Lieutenant Wilkerson acted. Sheriff Smith was one of the first responders and helped get Natalie to EMS quickly. And Lieutenant Wilkerson did everything he could to save Miss Irmy's life. And the incredibly quick response by EMS and law enforcement saved the lives of Coach Phoenix, Natalie, Taylor, and Melanie. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of those 41 seconds, the sense of security that this school and this community once had was shattered. But also in the aftermath of those 41 seconds, a community united, heroes emerged. Parents from all backgrounds came together on the football field to try and find and embrace their children. And every person in this community wanted to know one thing: who did this and how did this happen? Everyone except for that man, the defendant Colin Gray. He was not asking that question because he knew exactly who had done this and how this happened.
I want to thank you for your service. It's people like you who take time off from their work, from their daily lives, to come to court and be sure that our justice system is preserved. And for that, we want to thank you. You do this. You don't grumble about it. You come in here and you do your job. We appreciate that. A good jury is a cross-section of the community. Each one of you comes in here, you have different jobs, you have different religious backgrounds, come from different places, but you all share different experiences. And that's why it's good to have a cross-section of people, because each one of you has something to tell the other. Each one of you can look at a case a little differently than the other. The state gave you some charges that we feel the judge will read to you. I want to go over just a couple more of those, and then we'll get into what we believe the evidence showed or not showed. I think the cradle of American liberty is the burden of proof. Very simply put, the state has the burden of proving this case to you, not to a reasonable doubt, but beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what makes our system work. Presumption of innocence. Colin Gray, when he came into this courtroom, was presumed innocent. That presumption of innocence stays with a person until it's overcome by competent legal evidence. Reasonable doubt. Brooks went over a little bit about reasonable doubt. But simplified is it's a doubt for which you have a reason. It can be because of a conflict in the evidence. It can be because of a lack of evidence, or any number of things. If you are not satisfied and your minds are wavering and you're saying, well, you know, I didn't hear about this, I've got a problem with that, then that's a doubt of the law and you should acquit. The court's also going to tell you about grave suspicion. Grave suspicion, it merely puts upon a defendant a grave suspicion of a crime, charged, or merely raises a speculation or a conjecture of the defendant's guilt, is not sufficient to authorize a conviction. Speculation and conjecture is something that we have heard in this case. A lot of speculation. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? A lot of conjecture.
All right, that was Jimmy Berry, the defense attorney for Colin Gray, obviously giving closing arguments in his trial. Gray, 55 years old, charged with 29 felonies, including second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, and cruelty to children. The defense attorney obviously harping on the fact that much of this case on the part of the prosecution, which you also heard from here, is based on speculation, urging the jury to follow legal principle and guidelines to convict without a reasonable doubt. So we'll see if the jury concurs with either the defense or the prosecution in how to handle Colin Gray. Of course, we will continue to follow this trial, and as soon as we hear word of a verdict, we will bring it to you. As we continue here, a lot more still to get to this afternoon. The sister of a 7-year-old shot and killed shares her story with our Angelique Proctor after the break. Welcome back, everybody, to the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. I'm Tom Haynes with you live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. Want to get out to our Angelique Proctor, who is covering a heartbreaking story for us this afternoon, speaking to the family of a 7-year-old girl shot and killed when somebody opened fire on that girl's home. Angelique, nobody can imagine what a family like this is going through. What did they tell you in the aftermath of this horrific shooting?
Good afternoon to you, Tom. First, let me just say this is a shooting that has really upset so many people here in Atlanta, primarily because 7-year-old Zoey Price should have been protected in her own home. She should have been at peace there as she was enjoying her family. And so a lot of people are very much disturbed about what happened here. Zoey Price was a first grader who loved life, who was very involved. She was at the Slam Academy, which is a charter school in Southwest Atlanta. She was enjoying her family last Tuesday when somebody opened fire on that family home on Tiger Flowers Drive, and that stray bullet killed the little first grader. A second bullet wounded her mother, Cassandra Irving. Now, as you mentioned, Tom, I talked to Zoe's sister, Tanitia Irvin. Just spoke with her minutes ago, and she says this death, this unexpected death, is still so excruciating for her family.
Right now, we've just been taking everything day by day. We're trying to seek counseling for my family and for my younger sibling and my daughter as well, because everybody kind of took it hard, especially because Zoe was the baby of the bunch. Honestly, nothing can make it any better. Losing Zoe made us feel like we lost everything. So basically, we have to start everything over from scratch. Right now, my mom is still recovering from healing and she's grieving.
And she said losing Zoe was like they've lost everything. As we mentioned, so many people are touched by this story. Just this afternoon, during the Atlanta City Council meeting, Councilman Byron Amos spoke out about this case, basically asking members of the public to help police to find those responsible.
Ms. Price was the 7-year-old constituent of District 3 that unfortunately lost her life. Her only crime was growing up and playing in her own house and was struck by a stray bullet last week. Also like to mention her mother's name, Miss Cassandra Irvin, as well. Look, people, I understand there's a street code, but somebody out there knows something. And I have to remind you, it's only snitching if you was involved. And if you was involved, we're going to find you too. So I just want to lift up the name of Ms. Zoey Price and Ms. Irvin as well. Thank you.
Councilman Antonio Lewis also speaking out during the council meeting, asking anybody, doesn't somebody care about this child, and urging anyone to come forward and help Atlanta police solve this case. Now, we are at the Dunbar Recreation Center because this is where little Zoe was a cheerleader. This is where she came and had a whole lot of fun. She also played basketball here. And so this is where her family will gather beginning in a couple of hours and have a candlelight vigil. And we will be here and bring that to you during our news hour. Tom?
It's just so sad on so many levels. The fact that this child was just, as the councilman said, playing in her own home, the victim of gunfire at the tender age of 7 years old. Sadly, this is not, Angelique, as you know better than I do, the first time this has happened in our city. Do police usually, I mean, that councilman putting out the call for answers saying that you're not a snitch if you come forward and you weren't involved in this shooting. Do people eventually sort of come forward with any kind of information or clues so the police can track down who unleashed this gunfire in the first place?
Well, you know, Tom, sometimes they do, and sometimes it's the people who are closest to the shooter, a parent or a cousin or a family member, and that is what police are hoping, that someone will be so touched by all of this that they are trying to get the councilman and all of these people are trying to appeal to folks to start talking because someone knows something. Now, Atlanta police did tell us that there were 2 men that were in an argument on Tiger Flowers Drive. And so there are a lot of cameras in that area that captured the car, and there are different things that are known by different people. And so the hope is that somebody will come forward very soon to give this family some sort of peace.
Let's hope that happens. Zoey Price, the tender age of 7 years old, gunned down, literally, in her own home at no fault of her own. Angelique Proctor with the latest. Angelique, thanks. Want to turn back now?
Tom, the other
Sure,
thing
go
that we
ahead.
don't want to
Yeah.
I was going to say the other thing that we don't want to forget is that her mother was also shot in the breast, and still has that bullet in her ribs. So she too was very much a victim here and is now living with not only knowing that her daughter is dead and will never come back, but she too having health issues behind that bullet being in her body.
Just unimaginable, unimaginable. Our hearts and prayers go out to the mother and that entire Price family. Angelique, thanks. Want to get you back now to a live event that's happening as we speak, and that is the Secretary of State, who we said is on Capitol Hill this afternoon briefing lawmakers about the situation in Iran. This is a live picture of Marco Rubio. Let's listen in.
All right, thank you, guys.
And just like that, the Secretary is off to a briefing on Capitol Hill. This briefing set to take place here in the next 3 or so minutes. It's a classified briefing with the so-called Gang of Eight. These are the members of Congress who receive classified information as to the operation in Iran and how that operation is going. The Secretary briefing reporters there on perhaps giving a little bit of a glimpse of what he is going to talk to those lawmakers about. We listened to that news conference. Of course, we rolled on it here in the station. And we'll have much more on the Secretary's remarks coming up here in the next hour when you join us for Fox 5 News on air and here on Fox Local at 4 o'clock. That is going to do it for us here in the 3 p.m. streaming hour. I'm Tom Haines. Appreciate you joining us this afternoon. The news continues right here, right now.
Fox 5 News at 4.